Chapter 555. Stan Huangtian was incomparably overbearing as he directly rejected Shen Kongxiao's suggestion. Stan Wuxia frowned. What he hated the most was others making decisions for him. That was why he respected Yi Qinghan the most. Only Yi Qinghan respected him. Stan Huangtian was simply treating him like a 3-year-old child, interfering in everything. Old ancestor, can you not make decisions for me on everything? This is my marriage. I have my own thoughts and my soul. Stan Wuxia said angrily. I am your old ancestor. If I can't make decisions for your marriage, who can? Stan Huangtian replied overbearingly. The ones who raised me are my master and senior sister. If there is anyone who can make decisions, it should be them. What's more, they will only respect my wishes, and will never force their will on me. That's why you and I don't fit in. Master would never impose his will on me, but you have been imposing your will on me. I am not you. What right do you have to ask me to be like you? Tan Wuxia argued with reason and kept questioning. Stan Huangtian's breath stagnated as he looked at Stan Wuxia in disbelief. Such a son, if it was in the past, he would have slapped him to death. Wuxia had no respect for his elders and did as he pleased. He had the same temperament as Yi Qinghan. He didn't like Yi Qinghan because Yi Qinghan was the same as him. They were too overbearing and wouldn't follow anyone's will. Is this how Yi Qinghan taught you? You don't even respect your own ancestors. Stan Huangtian roared angrily. Respect is mutual. If you don't respect me, how can I respect you? Moreover, haven't I respected you enough all these years? Whatever you asked me to do, I did it without hesitation. Many things have touched my bottom line and principles, but I still did it. That is because my master taught me how to respect others. But what about you? Have you ever respected my choice until now? This is why I have always wanted to return to my master's side. Stan Wuxia looked at Stan Huangtian and wasn't willing to back down. Huff, huff, huff. Stan Huangtian was flustered and exasperated. He pointed at Stan Wuxia and wished he could kill him with a punch. Shen Kongxiao hurriedly crawled up and stood in the middle. At this moment, he could not let anything happen to Si Wuxia. Both of you, please calm down. If Brother Huangtian really doesn't like it, then forget it. My daughter isn't worthy of it, Shen Kongxiao said with a bitter smile. What do you mean I can't climb up the social ladder? There are only people I want to marry or not. There was no agreement or disagreement. There's nothing bad about Xiao Shui. It's fine if her talent is lacking, but she's kind-hearted and treats me very well. That's enough. Don't mix personal feelings with benefit. People of different paths cannot work together. I'm leaving. Si Wuxia grabbed Shen Kongxiao and was about to leave. If you dare to take her away today, I'll break your legs. Stan Emperor Tian couldn't control his anger as he threatened coldly. Master wouldn't say such things to me. You can attack and shout in pain. I'm not human. Si Wuxia directly dragged Shen Kongxiao outside. You're courting death. Si Tianjin was furious. In his world, there was no one else's will, only his own will. Si Wuxia had thoroughly infuriated him. Boom! Stan Emperor Tian waved his hand and grabbed Si Wuxia's neck without any mercy. If this attack hit, it would smash through Si Wuxia's head. No! Boom! Pooh! Shen Kongxiao didn't dare to let Stan Emperor Tian kill Si Wuxia. In a hurry, he circulated 30% of his strength and clashed with Stan Emperor Tian. His physical body was completely suppressed by Stan Emperor Tian's bloodline and was sent flying by a palm strike. Even Si Wuxia was sent flying. Si Wuxia, Shen Kongxiao, and Shen Kongxiao rolled on the ground and coughed up blood. Stan Emperor Tian, are you crazy? It's not a big deal for a child to be willful. Do you have to be so ruthless? Shen Kongxiao suddenly realized that he wasn't vicious enough. The vicious one was Stan Emperor Tian. If this person became the overlord, no one in his territory would dare to speak up. Otherwise, they would all be killed. I'd rather not have such a descendant. Get lost. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't I know that you were going to attack when I was condensing the divine lattice? Stan Emperor Tian said coldly. Shin Kongxiao's mouth twitched. He could only please one person now. He chose Si Wuxia. After all, Si Wuxia was Yi Qinghan's disciple. That was before. This is now. Si Wuxia is willing to die for you, but you're forcing your will on him. In my opinion, it's because he doesn't want an old ancestor like you, right? If you want to kill Si Wuxia, shouldn't you ask for Lord Ye's opinion? Shin Kongxiao acted like a loyal protector and stood in front of Si Wuxia. I want to kill my descendant. Let alone Yi Qinghan, no one can stop me. Stan Emperor Tian's aura exploded. His golden battle blood boiled and roared in the sky. His aura alone forced Shin Kongxiao to retreat continuously. The veteran god priest's full strength was actually inferior to Stan Emperor Tian's aura. Boom! Chao Wanjun also rushed out and joined forces with Shin Kongxiao to resist Stan Emperor Tian's aura. However, the two of them were still no match for him and were forced to retreat. PFFF. Shin Kongxiao's face was pale, and he kept coughing out blood. He looked at Stan Emperor Tian as though he was a mortal looking at a supreme god. He couldn't look at him directly and couldn't be blasphemed. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. My descendant must listen to me. Stan Emperor Tian shouted furiously. He raised his hand and formed a giant hand. It descended from the sky and caused the ground to cave in. Kacha! Shin Kongxiao's body was crushed and his bones were shattered. He kept coughing out blood. Boom! The two god priests joined forces and charged into the sky, wanting to block Stan Emperor Tian's aura. The three of them clashed, and the repercussions shattered mountains and rivers. All the strong martial artists in God's County's sphere of influence were shaken until they coughed out blood and fainted. PFFF. Shin Kongxiao and Chao Wanjun only understood after exchanging one move with Stan Emperor Tian. Stan Emperor Tian's vital energy and blood were vigorous to the extreme. An unstoppable force entered their bodies through their arms. They lost control of their divine power and almost fainted. Their bodies fell from the sky. Stan Wuxia carried Shin Kongxiao and did a flip, escaping from the center of the battlefield. He looked at Stan Emperor Tian's terrifying eyes with an embarrassed expression and didn't know what to do. I don't need a rebellious descendant. Stan Emperor Tian shouted furiously and waved his giant hand to slash across the sky. Hua! The giant hand collapsed the sky. Stan Emperor Tian displayed the power he had back then and wanted to suppress the two god priests and Stan Wuxia with one palm. Hum! Hum, 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 hua. At the end of the void, the sound of a zither rang out and penetrated thousands of miles. It was as though it came from the endless chaos, causing Stan Emperor Tian to be stunned. Immediately after, there was a slash that pierced through the sky and slashed at the giant hand formed by Stan Emperor Tian. Instantly, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The repercussions all surged upward, and none of them went towards Stan Wuxia. Why are you so agitated, Brother Huang Tian? Children need to be guided and not forced. They can't be killed just because they don't listen to you. Moreover, he's my disciple. You can't decide his life. A low voice reverberated through thousands of miles of God's County. The domineering aura surpassed Stan Emperor Tian as though a true god had descended. P.S. I apologize again. If everyone still can't watch, it's best to join the group. If you have any questions, you can contact me directly. Thank you. Chapter 556. Yi Qinghan held the 7-foot crazed maniac in his hand while Emperor Yi held the divine zither on his shoulder. He descended from the sky and floated over. His domineering aura stared coldly at Stan Huang Tian. His deep voice carried a will that could support the heavens and was irrefutable. Stan Huangtian and Yi Qinghan were the same type of people. They were domineering, but Yi Qinghan was not like him, a stubborn madman. His own son had to live according to his will. I can't make decisions for your disciple? My blood flows in his body. I can do whatever I want. Yi Qinghan, don't go overboard. Do you know how to teach your disciple? Half of the responsibility for teaching such a rebellious disciple and Wu Xie becoming like this is because of you. Stan Huangtian reprimanded coldly. Is he rebellious, or do you not know how to conduct yourself? He has his own soul. Does he need your permission to do anything? Do you want a son or a puppet? Yi Qinghan asked coldly. I'm doing it for his own good. Stan Huangtian was stubborn and could not see his mistake. Bullshit. You're doing it for your own good. Do you think I don't know what's going on in your head? Yi Qinghan was also angry and directly cursed. Yi Qinghan, who do you think you are? When I became emperor, your ancestors weren't even born yet. What right do you have to teach me a lesson? Stan Huangtian was furious and radiated killing intent. If it weren't for your sacrifice for the human race, I would definitely beat you up today. Stan Huangtian, the emperor back then, was indeed worthy of respect, but it doesn't mean that you can control everyone's will. The people of the world are not your puppets, and Wu Xie is not your personal property. If you don't change your outdated views, you will have no one to rely on in your old age. Yi Qinghan retorted without backing down. When two domineering men met, there was bound to be a conflict. You want to teach me a lesson? Today, I want to see how a junior will teach me a lesson. Stan Emperor's aura erupted. His golden battle aura was unstoppable as it pressed down on Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's black hair fluttered as he stared coldly at the Stan Emperor sky. His aura grew stronger and stronger as he pushed back step by step. One had the golden bloodline and the other had the five elements Tao body. Their auras suppressed the heavens. Even an experienced god like Shen Kongshao couldn't withstand it and kept retreating. Emperor Yi was expressionless as he stretched out his hand to take Shen Kongshue and see Wu Xie away. He looked at the battlefield from afar. Open! Cram! Stan Huangtian's fist tore through the void and opened up space. His fist emitted a golden glow as it blasted towards Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath, and the five elements gathered in his right fist. Dragon blood roared, and the azure dragon arm burst forth with terrifying power. Veins popped out all over his body, and his body tilted slightly to the side. His fist punched out from the back, and he charged toward the Stan Imperial sky with the force of a thunderbolt. He was fighting force with force, and there was no need for him to use any divine arts. Kacha! The tip of Yi Qinghan's feet crushed the ground. He twisted his waist, and the inch strike increased his strength by tenfold. Boom! Kacha! There was a loud sound, followed by the crisp sound of bones breaking. It was so loud that it broke everyone's eardrums. A mournful scream pierced through the void, and Stan Huangtian flew backward continuously. His feet crushed the ground, and he couldn't stabilize his body at all. From his fist to his chest, the bones broke inch by inch. Golden blood splattered and dyed the land red. Pfff. Stan Huangtian didn't even manage to catch his breath. He spat out a big mouthful of essence blood and retreated several hundred steps before he could stabilize his body. Yi Qinghan slowly retracted and didn't retreat an inch. His battle robe fluttered, and his black hair pierced through the void. There wasn't a hint of joy in his cold eyes, and he didn't even have any emotions. Shen Kongshao took in a cold breath as he looked at the backs of Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi. He suddenly recalled their identities. They were the Medusa that they had snatched away from him. It's them. Impossible. How many years has it been? Yi Qinghan was only at the Arch realm back then. No. This is impossible. Shen Kongshao was terrified as if he was afraid of something. Chao Wanjun also recognized them. His face was ashen and he felt uneasy. He had a bad feeling. The two of them looked at each other, and Shin Kongxiao asked with a hoarse voice transmission, "Do you think they can still remember us? Medusa's arrest warrant has not been revoked. This means that they didn't hand Medusa over, and we know the truth. Will they kill us to silence us?" Chao Wanjuan's face was filled with fear. Stan Huangtian was already very strong and domineering, but he couldn't even take one punch from Yi Qinghan. If they were to face Yi Qinghan again, even if there were 10 god priests, they wouldn't be a match for Yi Qinghan. Moreover, there was still Emperor Yi who could kill Lu Zhantian in an instant. What should we do? We will die. Chao Wanjun didn't know what to do. He didn't know that the two terrifying youths who appeared recently were Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi, whom he met a few years ago. Let's wait first. They might have already forgotten about us. Besides, with Xue Er's relationship, Yi Qinghan might not kill us. Shin Kongxiao could only pray like this. Otherwise, even if they escaped, they wouldn't be able to escape from Emperor Ye's grasp. Stan Huangtian was shocked and even angrier. He didn't expect that he would lose. Moreover, he lost in his strongest physical body. His entire right arm was only left with white bones. Golden battle blood erupted and instantly healed his injuries. You are indeed very strong. I have underestimated you, but you can't stop me from taking care of my son. You have no right to stop me. Stan Huangtian roared angrily. He is my disciple. If I don't let you take care of him, you can't take care of him. And you can't kill him. Yi Qinghan said disdainfully. What flows in Wu Xie's body is my golden battle blood. Why can't I take care of him? I am doing this for his own good. He is the one who will regret marrying a trash as his wife. Can Shin Kongshu accompany him for his entire life? No. Can she help him reach the peak? No. What kind of powerful physique can she provide for the continuation of his bloodline? You can't either. Stan Imperial Sky roared. My disciple doesn't need a woman as a stepping stone. If he can't reach the peak with his own strength, then he will be a trash for his entire life. As for his son, can't he reach the peak without a powerful bloodline? What a joke. I have a mortal body, but I can still beat you back. So what if you have the golden bloodline? The strong is in the heart, not the physique. Your theory is a joke to me. He is your son, so is he your puppet? What a joke. Since you said that he has your blood flowing in his body, he must listen to you. Then I will cripple his golden bloodline. I will remove his golden bloodline's origin. Are you satisfied now? Yi Qinghan grabbed Stan Wuxie and asked coldly, Wuxie, do you care about the golden bloodline? Stan Huangtian's eyes shrunk. When he saw Stan Wuxie shaking his head without hesitation and saying that he didn't care, his heart twitched. He quickly roared, No. If you dare to cripple his physique, I will fight it out with you. Chapter 557. It was unknown whether Stan Huangtian cared about the golden bloodline or Stan Wuxie. He immediately erupted and wanted to fight Yi Qinghan to the death. Yi Qinghan sneered in disdain. You don't even care about his life. Do you still care about his golden bloodline? Or do you only care about his bloodline and not his life? He inherited my bloodline. He can die, but he can't lose his bloodline. Stan Huangtian said selfishly. He is my disciple. He can lose his bloodline, but he can't die. Stan Huangtian, from today onwards, I will cripple his golden bloodline and strip away his origin. Stan Wuxie has nothing to do with you. If you dare to hurt him again, you will be my enemy. I can only kill my enemies. If you don't believe me, you can try and see if I have the ability to kill you. Yi Qinghan's voice was hoarse and cold. It was filled with ruthlessness. Previously, he still had respect for Stan Huangtian. Now, that good impression was gone. Stan Huangtian felt Yi Qinghan's killing intent and his aura stagnated. Master, I don't want the golden bloodline. I can still reach the peak, Stan Wuxia said firmly. Then bear with it. Yi Qinghan directly tore apart Stan Wuxia's body and mobilized the water origin. He instantly drained Stan Wuxia's blood and suppressed his soul in the depths of the sea of bitterness. The wood origin protected his soul. Hua! The fire origin instantly burned all of Stan Wuxia's golden bloodline and ignited a monstrous fire. This happened in an instant. Stan Huangtian couldn't stop it at all. Stan Huangtian glared angrily at Yi Qinghan. This was an unbearable insult. His son, his proudest bloodline, was actually destroyed by Yi Qinghan like trash. Stan Huangtian, watch carefully. Wuxia no longer has the golden bloodline. He will use my mortal blood to forge a golden body. Yi Qinghan drained Stan Wuxia's blood and crippled his golden bloodline. He directly forced out a drop of blood and injected it into him. He mobilized the 5 elements and took the initiative to help Stan Wuxia create new blood. Although the golden bloodline was crippled, he obtained the 5 elements Dao body. The powerful ability to produce blood allowed him to instantly recover. The powerful fire origin destroyed his physical body, completely severing his connection with the golden bloodline. The dragon blood roared. The fire origin destroyed his flesh and blood and rapidly reformed his golden body. Stan Wuxia twitched in pain. His soul twisted. He wanted to scream but couldn't. Although Stan Huangtian was furious, he did not sneak an attack on Yi Qinghan. Firstly, he could not get over it. Although he was selfish, he was more conceited and did not wish to sneak attack others. Secondly, he really did not dare to sneak an attack on Yi Qinghan. Once he did, he would become an enemy that would not rest until one of them was dead. There was no need for him to form an ugly alliance with Yi Qinghan. Although he was conceited, he was not an idiot. At this moment, Emperor Yi had saved Shen Kongxiu. He turned to look at Chao Wanjun and Shen Kongxiao, and his expression couldn't help but be stunned. He recognized the two of them as the people who had intercepted and killed Medusa back then. Thump! Seeing Emperor Yi's stunned expression, the two of them felt their hearts skip a beat. They knew that Emperor Yi had also recognized them. Their faces turned ashen as they retreated. Sir, we didn't tell anyone. We promise that no third person will know that she is with you. Shen Kongxiao pleaded in fear. Swoosh! Emperor Yi hugged the Emperor's guqin and stared at the two of them. He didn't want to leave behind any future troubles regarding Medusa. Moreover, once Medusa's identity was exposed, it would not only attract the experts from Divine Mu residence. The experts from the other 56 residences would also descend. The crazy sect would not be able to escape this calamity. Is that so? Then why are you retreating? Emperor Yi asked coldly. Shen Kongxiao wanted to cry but had no tears. He realized that he had been extremely unlucky recently. Right now, he wished that Emperor Yi was not the person who had kidnapped Medusa. Now that he knew, he had brought a fatal disaster upon himself. If you dare to attack me, I will tell you where she is right now. If you have the ability, you can wipe out the entire city. Chao Wanjun roared. He was so scared by Emperor Yi that he was driven to desperation. He wanted to fight to the death. However, Emperor Yi suddenly plucked the strings of the guqin. The sound of the guqin turned into a sharp divine weapon and directly slit his throat. Countless melodies exploded in his mind. Hum hum hum. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Emperor Yi's reaction was too fast. His 10 fingers slid across the guqin and instantly killed Chao Wanjun. Before the divinity could escape, it was suppressed by Emperor Yi and thrown into his universe ring. Boom! Shen Kongxiao fell to the ground and looked at Emperor Yi in fear. He didn't dare to escape and didn't dare to anger Emperor Yi. Sir, please, for the sake of Wu Xie and Shuer, spare my life. I really didn't tell anyone. Shen Kongxiao said helplessly. Emperor Yi looked at Shen Kongxiu. Shin Kongshui didn't know why Shin Kongxiao was so afraid of Emperor Yi and thought it was because of Si Wuxia. She hurriedly begged, "Sir, please spare my father. He only attacked Brother Wuxia because he was confused for a moment." Emperor Yi frowned. Unless Wu Xie could cut off his relationship with Shin Kongshui, killing Shin Kongshui's father would always be flawed. It would also affect the relationship between Wu Xie and Shin Kongshu. Therefore, he was a little hesitant. At this moment, Lu Zhantian stepped on a golden dragon and held Mu Shaoqi's hand as they rushed over from afar. It seemed like they came out with Yi Qinghan. It was just that they were left far behind by Yi Qinghan. The powerful dragon's aura intimidated God-punishing city, suppressing everyone so much that they didn't dare to show their faces. The streets were dead silent. Everyone was hiding in their rooms like a ghost city. Everyone in the God Manor had fled. There were only a few people left within a radius of 1,000 meters. Lu Zhantian landed on the street. His handsome and strong face was still pale. He didn't have any battle strength, but his aura made Shin Kongxiao unable to breathe. It was as if he had met the Manor Lord. It made him feel helpless, but it also made him see hope for survival. Hua! Shin Kongxiao hurriedly crawled and rushed to Lu Zhantian. He knelt on the ground and said loudly, "Sir, I have important information to report to you. I beg you to save my life." Mu Shaoqi stood in front of Lu Zhantian and frowned. "What information? Who wants to kill you?" Emperor Yi was instantly shocked. It was too late to kill Shin Kongxiao now. He couldn't kill Lu Zhantian and Mu Shaoqi together, right? "It's me who wants to kill him." Emperor Yi walked over quickly and stared at Lu Zhantian and Mu Shaoqi. His fingers plucked the strings of his guqin. The sound of the guqin was loud and covered the sound transmission between heaven and earth. He didn't want Shin Kongxiao to shout and tell her what happened back then, forcing her to massacre the city. Lu Zhantian said to Mu Shaoqi hoarsely, "Kill him! Don't listen to any information." Mu Shaoqi was stunned. She didn't understand why Lu Zhantian would make such a choice. The information that could make Shin Kongxiao so agitated was obviously very important. Even if it wasn't, it wouldn't be too late to kill him after he finished speaking. However, Lu Zhantian saw Mu Shaoqi's hesitation and took advantage of the fact that Shin Kongxiao didn't have time to speak to summon his spear. It pierced through the void and directly pierced through Shin Kongxiao's head. The spear even pierced through his godhead. Shin Kongxiao's corpse fell to the ground with a loud crash. He no longer had the chance to speak. Lu Zhantian used too much force and directly spat out a mouthful of blood essence. His face was extremely pale and devoid of color. Mu Shaoqi reprimanded softly, "You clearly know that you're heavily injured and can't use force, so why did you insist on doing it? It wouldn't be too late to let me kill him after he finished speaking." However, Lu Zhantian shook his head and said, "Knowing a friend's fatal secret won't do us any good. It'll only make things difficult for fellow Taoist Yi. The best choice is to let some things go with the wind." Emperor Yi nodded gratefully. Lu Zhantian's choice was the most correct. If the two of them knew about Medusa, she really wouldn't know how to handle it. Chapter 558. Stan Wuxia's body was remolded and his bloodline was reborn. He used the 5 elements body to replace the golden bloodline. The 5 elements body exuded a different aura. It was completely different from the golden bloodline. Stan Huangtian's eyes widened. He did not expect Yi Qinghan to be so ruthless. He directly changed Wuxia's bloodline. He was extremely willful. Yi Qinghan released Wuxia's soul and allowed him to regain control of his body. Stan Wuxia shook his body gently. Although he did not have the golden bloodline, his combat power did not decrease. Instead, it increased by a lot. "Brother Stan, you can take over the Gods County. Take it as my compensation. In the future, you and I will have nothing to do with each other." Wuxia and you will have nothing to do with each other. It is up to you whether you are friend or foe, Yi Qinghan said coldly. Stan Huangtian's mouth twitched. He watched as Yi Qinghan brought Wuxia away. He suddenly aged a little. Especially when he saw Wuxia's determined back view, his face darkened. Shin Kongshu watched as her father was pierced by Lu Zhantian's spear. Even his godhead was destroyed. She was dumbfounded and did not know what to do. Lu Zhantian was a high and mighty god. Even if all the experts in the gods' county attacked him together, they would not be enough to kill him, let alone Shin Kongshu. Shin Kongshu turned to look at Stan Wuxia helplessly. She muttered. She did not have deep feelings for the Shin Kong clan. Her mother was a servant and had a low status. Even if she gave birth to Shin Kongshu, her status was not as high as some old stewards. The direct descendants of the Shin Kong clan were not friendly to her. Once Shin Kongshao died, she would have nothing to do with the Shin Kong clan. Wuxia understood Shin Kongshu's situation and said, "This is my master and senior sister. Why are you not greeting them?" Shin Kongshu quickly bowed to Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi and said, "Shin Kongshu greets the two lords. Get up. I want to kill your father for other reasons. It is not because he bullied Wuxia. He and Chao Wanjun will definitely die. I cannot leave him alive," Emperor Yi explained calmly. It would be best if Shin Kongshu could accept it. If not, there was nothing she could do. Senior sister, there is no need to worry. Although Xiao Shui and Shin Kong Xiao are related, we are not related, Wuxia said quickly. Emperor Yi nodded and did not say anything else. Yi Qinghan glanced at Lu Zhantian and smiled. "Many thanks for Brother Lu's help. Brother Yi, there is no need. I'm never interested in things that I shouldn't know," Lu Zhantian calmly said. Mu Xiaoqi was a little embarrassed. After Lu Zhantian's words, she realized that she had handled the matter incorrectly. Compared to her, a princess with no life experience, a veteran soldier knew a lot more. While the few of them were talking, the small team sent by Lu Zhantian had also arrived at God's County City. Yi Qinghan thought for a moment and took out 5 elemental divinities. He said to Wuxia, "Wuxia, bring Shin Kongshu, her mother, and Shin Kong Quan's family to the insane sect. After settling down, cultivate for a while and control the 5 elements body. These are the 5 elements divinities. When the time is right, condense them. Do not be impatient." Wuxia accepted the divinities gratefully and bowed. "Thank you, Master. Go. I am going to travel with your senior sister. Your uncle masters are all in seclusion to cultivate and stabilize their divinities. I will leave the insane sect to you and Wutian. Someone will help you deal with it," Yi Qinghan instructed. "Yes, Master. I will take my leave." Wuxia pulled Shin Kong Shui to her residence and brought Shin Kong Quan's family and Shin Kong Shui's mother away. She then followed the team to Xianyu County's Xixia Mountain. Yi Qinghan's group of 4 walked outside God's County, looking at the world's scenery and comprehending the mythical plane. Lu Zhantian had been fighting in the army all year round and had never traveled before. At this moment, he was walking slowly with Mu Xiaoqi on a small path. His state of mind had changed a little. His soul was exceptionally calm, and the bottleneck that he had not broken through for many years had loosened. Mu Xiaoqi was purely a princess. Every time she went out, she would have a bunch of guards. At this moment, she was very relaxed. With Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi here, unless a prefecture lord came personally, no one could kill Mu Xiaoqi in front of the 2 of them. The prefecture lord was particularly relieved. The biggest city in the Mu Divine Estate is the Mu King County. The most prosperous city is the Yunhai County. I'll take you to the Yunhai County first. It has the most god worshippers there. It's the most prosperous place. Every year there's a trade fair. Heavenly materials and earthly treasures often appear in the auction. Many god worshippers go there because of its reputation. Mu Xiaoqi was the most familiar with the Mu Divine Estate. Lu Zhantian and Yi Qinghan were very interested. They both needed heavenly treasures. It was obviously useless for the gods to cultivate bitterly. The four of them were not in a hurry. Lu Zhantian finally recovered. Emperor Yi even played the guqin along the way to help him recuperate. After half a month, the four of them finally arrived at Yunhai County at the edge of the Eastern Sea. The sea and the sky were connected here. Clouds and mist drifted about. It was like a fairyland, hence the name Yunhai County. The four of them did not want to expose their identities. They put away the god-slaying eagle and dragon god far away from the city and walked toward Yunhai County's capital city. The man was as handsome as jade and was incomparably vigorous. The woman was unparalleled in her generation. Even if she tried to hide it a little, it was still hard not to notice. Lu Zhantian's injuries were 50 to 60% better. His complexion was slightly better, but he still looked like a sickly young master. The four of them walked side by side into the city. To avoid trouble, Emperor Yi and Mu Xiaoqi even put on a veil. As soon as they entered the city, they found out that Yunhai County was even more lively than Mushin Estate's capital city. Many people were famous figures in Mushin Estate. Experts were as common as clouds, and gods were everywhere. Most of the gods were adventurers, but there were also some disciples of sections. They were rich young masters who spent lavishly and never worried about divine crystals. The gathering of these people was a different story. Let's go to Taoba Street. That's the world of adventurers. They sell all kinds of things. Some of them look useless but are actually ancient divine weapons. Some of them look very valuable but are actually useless. That's why people call that place Taoba. Everything depends on luck. Let's try our luck. Mu Xiaoqi was familiar with the place. She led the three of them forward quickly. After a few turns, they arrived at an ancient road. The buildings on both sides of the road were filled with the vicissitudes of history and traces of time. No one knew how long they had been passed down. The divine bird that had been sleeping for a long time was awakened by the aura here. It opened its eyes in confusion. Its bright light scanned the depths and rushed out of Yi Qinghan's body. This divine bird seems to have smelled a divine item that intoxicates me. It's as if it was born waiting for the all-beast divine emperor to come and pluck it. The divine bird took a deep breath and spread its wings. Its eyes were blurred, and its expression was amusing. Yi Qinghan sneered. This bird would not wake up early if there were no benefits. A few days ago, it swallowed a piece of godhood and had been sleeping until now. Looking at its appearance, it had advanced to the 11th grade and could be considered a true divine bird. Chapter 559. Taoba Street was packed with people. Almost all of them were lesser gods. They were as numerous as the hairs on a cow. It was as if all the gods in God Mu Estate were gathered here. There were all kinds of shops, and the names were very eye-catching. The 2 rows of ancient trees in front of the shops were occupied by adventurers who couldn't afford to buy a shop. Everyone had a stall in front of them. There were all kinds of strange things on display. People were constantly discussing them. Most of the things weren't expensive, but they weren't anything good. Many people were speculators. They could earn a dozen divinity crystals by selling a fake, which was much more than what they could get from adventuring. Come and have a look. These divine objects were all excavated by me from ancient tombs. They have hundreds of thousands of years of history. They are valuable and can be collected and studied. Don't miss them. These are the latest treasures. There are superior divine arts, ancient divine arts, divine weapons, and everything. Open your eyes and take a good look. Such hawking was incessant. Many of the gods were very familiar with the words. This wasn't the first time they came out to make a living. The gods were able to get to where they were today because they didn't want to be bound by their sections. They would rather be independent cultivators and live a carefree life. However, life in the mythology dimension wasn't so easy. The priests had all become wily old foxes. Deceit had become their second nature, making use of human nature to take advantage of loopholes. They would disguise some items that weren't that valuable as ancient divine items, packaging them as divine items that had just been unearthed and selling them. However, there were also professional tomb robbers and treasure hunters who found treasures but couldn't use them. They could only sell them. Unfortunately, there were too many fake goods, so they couldn't raise the price. Life was very difficult. Sometimes, a real treasure couldn't be sold for a long time. In the end, they themselves doubted the value of these things and had to lower the price to sell them. Yi Qinghan and the others walked on both sides of the street and glanced at these things. If they liked them, they would start bargaining. These things were expensive for hundreds of divinity crystals. The cheap ones could be bought for only a few top-grade spirit crystals. The divine bird woke up and no longer needed Mu Xiaoqi to lead the way. However, many people could recognize the spirit-devouring divine parrot. They knew it was a treasure hunter, so it was unusually low-key. It squatted on Yi Qinghan's shoulder and transmitted its voice to guide the way. Go forward, go forward! There was a treasure! Quick, 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 someone is going to buy it, the divine bird said in a low voice. Yi Qinghan increased his speed. Emperor Yi, Lu Zhantian, and the other two followed behind him. They watched as he stopped in front of a middle-aged man. There were quite a few people surrounding the man's stall. It seemed like this stall really did have some treasures. Yi Qinghan stared at a metal box in the hands of a rich young master. However, there were no gaps at all. It was completely sealed shut. Furthermore, the box was abnormally sturdy. Even divine weapons could not destroy it. Even if there were no treasures or divine items inside, this box was still very valuable. At the very least, it could be smelted and reforged into divine weapons. That's it. There are good things inside, but this damn box can actually block my divine sense. This divine bird can't see what's inside. The divine bird transmitted. The rich young man holding the box was also hesitating. He kept turning the box over and sizing it up. He discovered that there were actually a few divine flowers carved on the box. On top of the divine flowers was a divine dragon. It was very lifelike. Young master, I found this box in the periphery of God Extinction Mountain. I can't open this box. Even if I used divine weapons to forcefully hack at it, I couldn't leave a single mark on it. Therefore, I had no choice but to sell it. It's worth 1,000 mid-grade divine crystals. If you like it, then take it. The burly man had a scar on his face. Even as a lower god priest, he couldn't heal it. It could be seen that he was injured by a very terrifying divine weapon. He was a true adventurer. He even dared to go to the periphery of God Extinction Mountain. This boldness was not something an ordinary person could possess. God Extinction Mountain was an ancient battlefield. It was located in the southeast of Divine Mu Estate. Back when Divine Mu Estate still didn't exist, several fierce battles had occurred there. The entire mountain range was razed to the ground. There was no life left. In the end, that place became an ominous place. Even experts like the estate master didn't want to go there. Those who entered God Extinction Mountain would definitely encounter misfortune within 100 years. If it was light, they would be heavily injured. If it was heavy, their soul would scatter. Of course, this was only a legend. However, the more mysterious the legend, the more experts would believe it. Therefore, the interior of God Extinction Mountain became a true place of extinction. There were fragments of divine tools everywhere. There were also quite a few universe rings. However, no one dared to go in to search for treasures. Lu Zhantian frowned. If this box was really found in the periphery of God Extinction Mountain, then 1,000 mid-grade divine crystals wouldn't be too expensive. That was because it might really be a supreme treasure left behind by an archaic divine priest. However, if it wasn't something that came from God Extinction Mountain, then this thing might only be worth a few mid-grade divine crystals. Fellow Taoist, I don't even know the true origin of this thing. Asking for 1,000 mid-grade divine crystals is too expensive. I can only give you 30%. 300. If you sell it, then I'll buy it. Even if there's no supreme treasure inside, this box can at least be worth a few mid-grade divine crystals. I won't lose too much. How about it? The young man in embroidered clothes said in a deep voice. The burly man's eyes narrowed. His killing intent was instantly released. However, he was someone who made a living after all. He quickly suppressed his temper and said in a muffled voice, "These things were exchanged with my life. I'm not an opportunist who casually takes out something to make up the price. 1,000 mid-grade divine crystals. If you want to buy it, then buy it. If you don't want to sell it, then forget it." The young man in embroidered clothes seemed to be the opportunist. He looked for treasures and then sold them. He was also very insightful. He felt that this box was indeed a treasure, but he couldn't be sure if this box was worth more than 1,000 mid-grade divine crystals. Therefore, he didn't dare to take the risk. He always wanted to lower the price. He put down the box and pretended to leave. However, just as he turned around, Yi Qinghan directly grabbed the box and threw out 1,000 mid-grade divine crystals. He didn't even talk about the price. He was so forthright that the burly man in the booth was a little stunned. 1,000. Count it yourself, Yi Qinghan said indifferently. The burly man immediately laughed and said, "Fellow Taoist is forthright. I like it. If there's anything you like, you can buy some more. I'll give you some other small things. They're all obtained from my adventures. Although I can't tell the price, they're definitely worth more than the fake goods that those opportunists make." The young man in embroidered clothes saw that the deal was done. He glared at Yi Qinghan and said coldly, "Fellow Taoist, you've gone too far. I didn't say I didn't want it. What right do you have to pay for it? We all saw that you put down the box and turned around to leave. It's too late to regret now. The box already belongs to Brother Yi. If you want to buy it, you have to ask Brother Yi the price. What's the point of speaking so rudely?" Mu Xiaoqi raised her eyebrows and asked. "I just turned around to get the divine crystals. I didn't say I didn't want this box." "What? You want to bully me with your numbers? Why don't you ask how long I've been in Yunhai County? Who dares to not give me face?" The young man's eyes flashed fiercely as he threatened sternly. The burly man's face darkened. He was somewhat dissatisfied with the young man's actions. However, he didn't dare to offend the person in front of him. He was a relative of the Yunhai County's county god. He relied on this identity to earn hundreds of thousands of gold coins on Taobao Street. He was terrifyingly powerful. If he offended him, he wouldn't be able to survive here in the future. "Then what do you want?" Yi Qinghan asked calmly. Chapter 560. Then what do you want? Yi Qinghan looked at the young man calmly and asked in a low voice. "What do I want? Kid, is this your first time in Yunhai County? How dare you provoke me?" The young man said coldly. "How did I provoke you? You put down the box and left. Don't tell me you won't allow me to buy it?" Yi Qinghan asked indifferently. "You want to reason with me? Ha ha ha, kid, it seems like this is your first time here." The young man mocked. Slap. Yi Qinghan raised his hand and slapped the young man to the ground. The young man's face hit the ground, and even the stone floor was shattered. The young man's face was badly mutilated, and his teeth were scattered all over the ground. "Since you don't like to reason with me, then you can talk with me with your fists." After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he raised his leg and kicked the young man more than 10 meters away. He turned around and continued to look at the stall, looking for treasures that he liked. Yi Qinghan's actions stunned the surrounding people. They had never seen such a domineering man. He acted swiftly and decisively, and he beat the young man up just like that. The burly man was also shocked by Yi Qinghan. He didn't know where to put his hands. Looking at the people around his stall, he actually couldn't feel anything. The young man was stunned by Yi Qinghan's slap, and he didn't react for a long time. Then he was kicked away and fainted. He lay in the middle of the street, and no one came to help him. Many people were even gloating over his misfortune. However, there were also some people who were pointing at Yi Qinghan and discussing something. Fellow Taoist, this guy is the brother-in-law of the Yunhai County god. His name is Shi Qian, and he's a famous hooligan. He colludes with the immortal guards to suppress his peers and lower the price. We can't do anything to him. You should leave quickly. Otherwise, when the immortal guards react, we'll all be in trouble. The burly man hurriedly said. Don't worry, you won't be implicated. I'll wait for the immortal army to come, Lu Zhantian said coldly. Lu Zhantian was very famous, but there weren't many people who knew him. He had been fighting outside all year round. Those who could see him were either the higher-ups of the divine cleansing manor or people from the military. At this moment, even if his real body was here, no one would recognize him. Moreover, his face was pale like a sickly young master. Who would associate him with the powerful Lu Zhantian? The big man's face turned ugly. He did not want to get involved in the fight between the strong sections. It was not that Shi Qian had not offended the strong sects before, but it was always the adventurers who suffered. As the saying goes, a powerful dragon cannot suppress a local snake. You should leave. If you don't, you won't be able to leave even if you want to. Yes. A few days ago, Mu Zifei, the grandson of the Mushan County's county god, used his background to fight with Shi Qian. In the end, he was captured and tortured by the immortal guards for several days. In the end, the son of the Mushan County's county god personally came to ask for him. The immortal guards explained that it was a misunderstanding and let him go. You should leave quickly. The experts around reminded them one after another. A powerful dragon will not cross the river. I can also trample on a local snake until he can't crawl back up, Lu Zhantian said with disdain. If they angered him, he could bring the Iron Dragon army to raise the Yunhai County's capital city. Yi Qinghan did not answer. Lu Zhantian and the seventh princess were beside him. If they needed him to deal with such a small matter, then they were underestimating the Iron Dragon army and the princess of the Mushan County. The divine bird found a few more treasures and changed to another stall. Yi Qinghan did not have the slightest intention to escape. Shi Qian's secret guards saw that Yi Qinghan was not to be trifled with, so they secretly carried Shi Qian away without leaving any harsh words. In less than half an hour, the immortal guards had sealed off the entire street. An entire army of 1,000 people, hundreds of priests, armed with divine weapons, acted tyrannically. They did not look like an army, but more like a gang of gangsters. With a fierce face, they walked towards Yi Qinghan's group with a cold smile. Boom! Many adventurers directly packed up their things and scattered. Some even hid in the shops on the street and closed the doors. They watched Yi Qinghan's group of 4 leisurely waiting for the immortal guards to arrive. Lu Zhantian crossed his arms and turned his head to look at the hundreds of priests who were acting like gangsters. The corner of his mouth revealed a trace of disdain. If these immortal guards were his subordinates, he would have beaten them to death. There was no need to send them to the battlefield to make a fool of themselves. These immortal guards were the private soldiers of the major cities and counties. They were not bound by the Mushan County and only listened to the county god. Therefore, in Yunhai County, they only recognized the relatives of the county god. They did not recognize anyone else. If they offended them, they would wantonly retaliate. Some of the direct disciples of ordinary sects would be beaten to death. The commander was a middle-aged man with sharp eyes. He looked more like a fox. He was definitely a treacherous person, but his strength was not strong. He relied on Shi Qian to get his position, so he followed Shi Qian's lead. As soon as he heard that Shi Qian was beaten, he immediately brought his men and rushed over. Was it the 4 of them? The commander looked at one of Shi Qian's secret guards and asked in a low voice. Yes, it was them. It was the man in black who hit him. Sir Shi has not woken up yet. Quickly capture them and send them to the Shi mansion. When the young master wakes up, there will be a great reward. The secret guard coldly said. Brothers, let's go, whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and Lu Zhantian turned into bolts of lightning and charged into the crowd. One wielded a long spear while the other wielded a 7-foot-long saber. They were invincible as they charged through the crowd and killed 3 to 4 priests with a single slash. The long spear pierced through the void and pierced through the heads of the priests, plucking out their godheads. When it came to killing and breaking through the enemy lines, Yi Qinghan's skills might not be as strong as Lu Zhantian's. After all, he had been on the battlefield for thousands of years. If he did not have some real skills, he would have died a long time ago. How could he become a vice commander? Kill! With 2 angry shouts, flesh and blood splattered on the street. The priests were unable to use the power of their divine abilities. They did not even have time to pull out their sabers before they were killed by Yi Qinghan. Lu Zhantian cooperated with them from the side. They were very well coordinated and practically swept through the crowd. More than 100 priests were either dead or crippled. There were even some who were directly blown up by Yi Qinghan's fist. Lu Zhantian and Yi Qinghan did not have any intention of holding back. They directly killed the immortal guards. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Hundreds of thousands of vines suddenly stretched out from Yi Qinghan's body and wrapped around a large number of corpses. In an instant they were sucked dry. Some priests who had not yet died tried to escape, but they could not escape the shackles of the star-twining vines. Their godheads were directly pulled out by the vines and became its food. Blurg. Many adventurers had never seen such a cruel scene, let alone the immortal guards who had sealed off the entire Taobao street. They vomited incessantly and did not even have the heart to escape. More than 100 priests had all fallen. These adventurers were used to seeing powerful young masters and powerful sect disciples, but they had never seen people as crazy as Yi Qinghan and Lu Zhantian. They raised their sabers and started killing. They did not just kill a single immortal guard, but a large group of immortal guards. Yi Qinghan withdrew his saber and looked at Lu Zhantian. He said indifferently, "Actually, I feel that some people cannot be reasoned with. It is also good to kill them until they are reasoned with. At least it will not be so tiring." Lu Zhantian nodded, expressing his high agreement with Yi Qinghan's attitude. Chapter 561. Yi Qinghan and Lu Zhantian's calm words shook the hearts of all the heroes. Their godheads almost shattered. Yunhai County was different from other counties. Rather than saying it was a city under the Divine Cleansing Prefecture, it was better to say it was an independent autonomous county. Gods were as common as clouds and experts were as numerous as dogs. The county god's strength was an extreme almighty god. His battle prowess was not inferior to the Divine Cleansing Prefecture's chief steward and was on par with the Iron Dragon Army's governor. Yunhai County god Yun Haitian didn't even give face to the other 3 county gods. Only the prefecture lord could suppress him. Many people looked at Yi Qinghan and Lu Zhantian as if they were dead. However, there were always people who recognized Yi Qinghan. After all, Yi Qinghan's reputation had skyrocketed in the past few days. Even a 3-year-old child had heard of his name, especially that flashy crazy 7-foot saber, which was unique. He is Yi Qinghan, right? Apart from him, who else could use a saber so smoothly? Now that you mention it, I think it is possible. Look at those 2 veiled girls. Could one of them be Emperor Yi? That may not be so. Recently, there have been many impostors in the major regions. The crazy 7-foot saber has become a common sight, especially for a group of children. Their weapons are 7-foot-long sabers. If a blacksmith doesn't know how to make a crazy 7-foot saber, they would be too embarrassed to say they know how to refine weapons. More than 10 adventurers gathered together and stared at Yi Qinghan while discussing. Some suspected that Yi Qinghan was an impostor. Yes. A few days ago, I was almost fooled by a young man and woman. A young man in his 20s had a 17 or 18-year-old girl by his side. There was nothing to say about their looks. The girl even dyed her hair white. The man was also holding a 7-foot-long saber. When I first saw them, I was stunned on the spot. I really thought that they were Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi. I spoke very carefully and wanted to befriend them. However, those two were knocked down by a brute with one punch. Only then did I know that they were impostors. A middle-aged man speechlessly said. While everyone was talking, 10,000 soldiers rushed out of the Yunhai Divine Army's barracks and aggressively surrounded the street. The road ahead and the back were blocked. They couldn't fly even if they wanted to. How dare you? You actually dare to massacre the Divine Cleansing Divine Army? The Divine Army's deputy commander angrily said. Less nonsense, take him down. Did he think that he was Yi Qinghan just because he had the 7-foot maniac? Even if it was him who killed so many of my brothers, I would still want his life. The Legion commander waved his hand and ordered. Whoosh, whoosh. An army was an army after all. They were orderly and imposing. Under the pressure of so many people, even the Divine Cleansing Divine Army would have to consider whether to attack forcefully or not. Yun Qinglong, you have such a high position. Boom. Lu Zhantian stabbed his spear into the ground, causing the stone slabs to shatter and fly in all directions. His imposing manner was like that of a war god. I am Lu Zhantian. If you want to fight, I will play with you. If you dare to attack me today, you will have to kill me. If I escape, I will raze your Yunhai County to the ground. Lu Zhantian's face was solemn. Boom. The Divine Cleansing Divine Army suddenly stood in place, unable to advance or retreat. They looked at Lu Zhantian with pale faces and occasionally turned to look at Yun Qinglong. They didn't know how to deal with the current situation. Yun Qinglong's breath stagnated. He looked at Lu Zhantian and frowned. This imposing manner alone was enough to explain his identity. Apart from those who had been on the battlefield for many years, not many people could release such a powerful aura, let alone such a terrifying killing intent. Lu Zhantian? Why are you here? Yun Qinglong frowned and asked. Why do I need to report to you? I originally came here with Shao Qi to play, but as soon as I arrived, I was angered by a trash. Is this how you manage the Divine Cleansing Divine Army? You're also a veteran who followed the superintendent. Is this how he taught you how to lead troops? A bunch of trash colluding with officials and merchants. Don't tell me you don't know. Lu Zhantian coldly reprimanded. Yun Qinglong's face suddenly changed. He was Lu Zhantian Sr. Of course, he didn't think that Lu Zhantian could scare him. However, he couldn't ignore the Shao Qi that Lu Zhantian mentioned. She was the most precious treasure of the prefecture chief. So the 7th princess is also here. This old man didn't come out to greet you. Please forgive me, Your Highness. Yun Qinglong looked at Emperor Yi and Mu Shaoqi. Both of them were wearing veils, so he couldn't tell who was who. He could only stare blankly at them. You don't need to care about me. Answer Brother Tian. Do you know what that trash Shiqian did? Mu Shaoqi coldly asked. Yun Qinglong's face turned ashen. He knew that Shiqian had kicked an iron plate. He obviously couldn't admit that he knew. Otherwise, if Lu Zhantian reported this to the governor, the superintendent would personally come and slap him to death. This old man didn't know about this. I have been in seclusion recently, striving to enter the divine worship realm. If the vice commander didn't tell me that someone had slaughtered more than 100 high-ranking divine cleansing divine guards, I would still be in seclusion. So, Yun Qinglong lowered his head and said, this was a matter between the military and the government. Yi Qinghan didn't want to interfere. He simply retreated to the side with Emperor Yi and waited for the results. Lu Zhantian looked at Yun Qinglong with disdain and mocked. A dignified legion commander actually has such a soldier. Are you going to tell the superintendent that you are a soldier from the Steel Dragon Army? Yun Qinglong's face slightly changed. He coldly said, Lu Zhantian, I don't need you to judge my soldiers. They can fight on the battlefield as well. When this old man led soldiers to war, you weren't even born yet. What qualifications do you have to judge me? The one who is superior is the teacher. You brought out such a disgraceful soldier, yet I can say this to you. This is the tradition of the Steel Dragon Army. Have you forgotten the military discipline after leaving the Steel Dragon Army? Lu Zhantian questioned. This old man doesn't want to argue with you. Today you started a fight in the city. Both of you will follow me to the prison and wait for the county god's judgment. According to military discipline, if the emperor breaks the law, he will be punished the same as the commoners. Lu Zhantian, you use military discipline to talk to me, then I will use military discipline to talk to you. Are you going to surrender or wait for this old man to come and arrest you? Yun Qinglong coldly replied. Then you will have to ask my brother if he agrees. Lu Zhantian looked at Yi Qinghan and said indifferently. Yi Qinghan sneered. If he went to prison with Yun Qinglong now, would he still be alive? I really don't see the use of Yunhai County's laws. Subordinates follow the example of their superiors. I also learned it from you. If you want to arrest me, then tie yourself up and throw me into prison. I will follow you automatically. Otherwise, this lord will not go to prison with you. Yi Qinghan indifferently said. It seems that you are Yi Qinghan? Yun Qinglong coldly asked. That's right. Yi Qinghan shrugged. Yun Qinglong's face slightly changed. He clearly didn't want to offend Lu Zhantian and the seventh princess. He also didn't want to offend Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi. If he offended all four of them at once, his future days wouldn't be good. His eyes flashed as he prepared to find a way out. Chapter 562. Yun Qinglong's eyes flickered. He didn't dare to look straight at Yi Qinghan. The pressure of looking at Yi Qinghan was like looking at the governor of the Iron Dragon Army. He couldn't raise his head at all. Yi Qinghan looked at Yun Qinglong indifferently. He didn't have the ability to make a fuss, so there was no need to argue with him. Yun Qinglong didn't dare to make a move. No matter how powerful the four of them were, they couldn't kill all 10,000 people. He said, I presume Commander Yun doesn't know that Shi Qian colluded with your subordinates to bully others, suppress adventurers, and humiliate fellow cultivators who came to travel? This old man was indeed negligent. I've made a fool of myself in front of Princess and fellow Yi. Yun Qinglong smiled bitterly. That's why I helped you kill some trash. I hope Sir won't make a fuss about it. As for Shi Qian, if your county deity doesn't care, someone will help him in the future, or even take care of him together. Pass on my words to him. I hope he'll take care of himself, Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. Without waiting for Yun Qinglong to speak, Yi Qinghan turned to Emperor Yi and said, Let's go. The four flew into the air. The immortal guards didn't dare to stop them and made way. By the time Yun Qinglong reacted, the four had already flown into the sky on the god-slaying eagle and disappeared into the horizon. On the back of the god-slaying eagle, Yi Qinghan stood proudly against the wind. He looked down at the vast and boundless land of the Mu clan. Mountain after mountain reached the clouds. Birds flew to the mountain peak. They were incomparably ruthless. Sometimes they would catch ferocious beasts and directly tear them apart. Blood dyed the sky red. Screech! An unknown bird let out a mournful and furious cry, enraging the god-slaying eagle. It roared back with an even more ruthless and furious cry, scaring the surrounding 1,000 miles into silence. There was no more howling wind, and the sound of clothes flapping in the wind could be heard. Where is God Extermination Mountain? Yi Qinghan asked in a low voice. Lu Zhantian frowned and replied, It's southeast of Divine Cleansing Prefecture's main city, 300,000 li northwest of Cloud Sea County. It's the God-exuding mountain range. It used to be an ancient battlefield. 3 prefectures once fought a fierce battle there. It's an ominous place. Brother Yi, it's best if you don't go there. Ominous? Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and asked, was there anything more ominous than the 9th underworld in this world? He had already been to the 18th level of the 9 Nether Realm, but he didn't see any ghosts taking him away. That's right. Tens of thousands of years ago, there were many experts that entered God End Mountain. But after leaving God End Mountain, almost all of them died on the same night. There was no way to find out the cause of death. Everyone died the same way. Their eyes popped out, their faces were purple, and there were marks on their necks. But their godheads weren't damaged and their souls died. Lu Zhantian smiled bitterly. Logically speaking, we cultivators shouldn't be superstitious. But this matter was indeed strange. Even the almighty experts couldn't escape the curse. They died the same way. In the end, there was a prefecture head who didn't believe it and also went in. In the end, no one knew what he provoked. When he returned to his prefecture, his eyes turned red and moss grew out of his body. It was as if he had been dead for tens of thousands of years. The moss attached itself to his godhead and actually swallowed the prefecture head's soul. In the end, that prefecture head personally grabbed his own neck and strangled himself to death. His eyes rolled back and his face turned purple. His death was extremely terrifying. Moreover, he died in front of hundreds of experts in his prefecture. This matter became more and more mysterious. So after that prefecture head, no matter how brave the adventurers were, they only dared to wander around the periphery. No one dared to enter God End Mountain. From then on, God End Mountain became the true God End Mountain. Lu Zhantian explained. Yi Qinghan was astonished. This kind of death was a bit similar to the witch tribe's curse technique of the nature tribe. However, did the mythical plane have witch ancestors or witch gods? You believe that this is because of bad luck or because they encountered something dirty? Yi Qinghan looked at Lu Zhantian. It was obvious that he didn't believe this. Of course I don't believe it. However, it's too risky to bring the two of them in. Lu Zhantian looked at Emperor Yi and Mu Xiaoqi. It was obvious that he also wanted to enter God End Mountain. However, he didn't want the two women to take the risk. Humph, you're just asking for a beating. Don't forget who crippled you. Emperor Yi coldly snorted. My son is fine. If something happened to her, then something will happen to the two of us. However, the 7th princess's identity isn't ordinary. I think we should just forget about it. Yi Qinghan naturally didn't want to bring the 7th princess in to take the risk. If something happened, the prefecture head would fight him to the death. No. If you all want to go in, then you must bring me in as well. Otherwise, don't go in at all. Mu Xiaoqi was very bold and very curious. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been bitten by the 7 demise snake. She also wouldn't have wanted to find out what secrets Shen Kongxiao was talking about. After an intense discussion, the 4 of them couldn't change Mu Xiaoqi's attitude. Thus, they decided to join forces and enter God End Mountain to investigate. Emperor Yi played a divine tune and used the time on the road to heal Lu Zhantian's last bit of injury. A distance of 300,000 miles was only a matter of seconds in the endless plains. However, it was different in the mythical plane. The god-slaying eagle flew for a full half a month and crossed countless mountains and rivers before arriving in front of an unparalleled mountain range. Smoke filled the air. Ferocious beasts ran amok in the periphery. However, there was an eerie aura of death in the depths. The cold aura caused the priests to shiver uncontrollably. When Yi Qinghan and the others landed outside the mountain range, it happened to be early in the morning. Immortal aura lingered and divine light shone brilliantly. Tender green leaves swayed in the morning breeze. An ancient aura filled the air. There were very few signs of human habitation. It was as if no one had come here for thousands of years. A gust of cold wind blew past. Mu Xiaoqi's entire body trembled. Her face was deathly pale, and a hint of shock appeared in her eyes. However, she gritted her teeth and didn't want to retreat. Emperor Yi patted Mu Xiaoqi's shoulder comfortingly and said in a low voice, "If you really can't do it, you can just stay outside." "No. I just want to go in and take a look. You all are so confident. I feel like I can definitely come back alive. Maybe my name can also be recorded in the annals of history." Mu Xiaoqi was a little crazy. She actually wanted to enter God End Mountain to become famous. At this moment, the divine bird suddenly jumped out of Yi Qinghan's body. It stared into the depths with its large eyes and said in horror, "Yi Qinghan, if you dare to go in, I will sever all ties with you." Yi Qinghan pursed his lips. The divine bird would say this every time and exaggerate the danger. However, didn't he always turn the danger into safety? What now? Is there something inside that eats people? Yi Qinghan asked indifferently. "I'm freaking going to explode before I even go in. Who knows what's inside? Anyway, just listen to me this once. When has this divine bird ever harmed you?" The divine bird's white feathers exploded as it said angrily, "We'll just walk around the periphery. We won't go in. Don't get so worked up." Yi Qinghan reached out and pinched the divine bird. He put away the god-slaying eagle and walked straight into the depth. The divine bird roared madly, waking up the cloud beast. It opened its large eyes in confusion and scanned the strange forest. It kept calling out in a low voice, "Meow, meow, meow." The cloud beast pointed its small claws at the depths as if it was afraid of something. Yi Qinghan became even more curious. Just what kind of damned thing was in the depths of this forest that could curse experts? Even experts at the level of a manor head would be cursed and die tragically at his hands. Chapter 563. In the main hall of the Mushin estate, the estate master heard the steward's report that Yi Qinghan had brought Princess Qi and Lu Zhantian into God Extinction Mountain. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. The steward bowed slightly and said, "My lord, they just entered the outer area. Why don't I go and stop them? Maybe we can stop them." The estate master thought for a moment and shook his head. "Forget it. Let them go in. If something really happens, maybe someone will come and save them." The estate master decided to take a gamble. He bet their lives that the 9 Remoteness Lord would appear. If he won, he would have a chance to enter the realm of a superior god and become the 10th superior god of the mythical plane. If he lost, he could only blame their bad luck. In the outer area of God Extinction Mountain, the first ray of sunlight couldn't shine in at all. When the sunlight shone on the white fog, it refracted several colors. It was very beautiful. Yi Qinghan and the others held their weapons. They even gave the reincarnation mirror to Mu Xiaoqi to use in case of an emergency. Lu Zhantian emitted a majestic killing intent. He held a spear and wore golden armor. His masculine aura covered the sky and earth. It could block the filthy, evil aura. Yi Qinghan's aura even surpassed Lu Zhantian's. The fire origin wrapped around his body. Any unlucky filth that approached would be burned into nothingness. The metal origin wandered around his body. He emitted a golden light and intertwined with Emperor Ye's energy. They formed the great Tao of Yin and Yang. The Yin and Yang diagram hung in front of his chest. On the rugged path, the eerie white bones were a ghastly sight. It was unknown how long they had been dead. Most of them were the remains of god priests. They hadn't completely rotted yet. There were even some that were in perfect condition as if they had just died yesterday. The divine bird lay on Yi Qinghan's shoulder dispiritedly. It said weakly, "This divine bird knew that one day you would kill me. What are you afraid of? I don't believe there's something that can affect the fate of a powerhouse. It can even scare a supreme god priest to death. There's definitely something fishy here. Yi Qinghan's eyes were like stars. He held his long sword behind him and said in a low voice, "But why don't you think about it? If this trick can kill an extreme Tao Almighty Priest, why can't it kill the four of you?" The divine bird argued. Lu Zhantian and Mu Xiaoqi both curiously looked at the divine bird. They had both heard of the reputation of the divine spirit-devouring parrot, but this was the first time they had seen it. Mu Xiaoqi even wanted to reach out and grab it to play with, but she was glared at by the divine bird. She quickly withdrew her hand and snorted. Boom! A huge beast that had already mutated appeared. It looked like a lion, but it also looked like a tiger. Or rather, it was something that did not look like anything at all. It was as huge as a small mountain. It directly jumped out from the depths and waved its huge paw at the four of them. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan slashed out with his blade with unstoppable force. He slashed at the giant palm, but it was as if he had hit a dimensional barrier. The vast power sent him flying. Whoosh! Lu Zhantian immediately stabbed out with his spear. He joined forces with Yi Qinghan to resist the giant beast's attack. Mu Xiaoqi directly activated the reincarnation mirror. Her divine power was almost depleted in an instant. A deep black light of reincarnation appeared in front of them, covering dozens of miles. However, it did not kill the beast. It only destroyed part of its body, which angered the beast even more. Roar! The beast let out a mournful roar. It swept its huge limbs and broke dozens of thick ancient trees. It then smashed towards the four of them. Whoosh! 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 Hundreds of thousands of vines suddenly rushed out of Yi Qinghan's body and directly wrapped around the giant beast's body. The cloud beast went berserk like a bolt of lightning. It streaked across the bottom of the giant beast's head. Instantly, flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The blood sword pierced through the sky. Roar! The beast screamed as its throat was slashed open by the cloud beast's sharp claws. Poochie! The huge mane vine smoothly pierced through the throat. Countless vines sank into the beast's body, and a large amount of flesh and blood was devoured by the star-twining vine. Whoosh! 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 Yi Qinghan and Lu Zhantian went berserk at the same time. They continuously slashed open wounds on the giant beast's body. Every time a wound appeared, the star-twining vine would pierce it with hundreds of vines. The star-twining vine's appetite was frightening. It instantly devoured half of the mountain-like beast's life essence. The beast fell to the ground with a loud bang. The cloud beast was too small. It was almost negligible in front of the giant beast. Its flying speed was too fast. It kept slashing open the beast's head and dug out a head-sized godhead. The giant beast twitched and roared. The godhead emitted a skyrocketing light and directly sent the cloud beast flying. Boom! Yi Qinghan leaped up and slashed at the godhead. However, the godhead exploded with a terrifying power and directly sent him flying. Even Yi Qinghan was smashed into the distance. The godhead bore the force of 1,000,000 jin and directly smashed into the ground. Lu Zhantian flew over and forcefully held onto the godhead. The star-twining vine stretched out thousands of vines and wrapped around Lu Zhantian as well. Yi Qinghan returned to his original spot and extracted the godhead from the vines. The vines automatically spread out and desperately absorbed the giant beast's life essence. This is the giant mountain beast, a strength-type divine beast. The power contained in the godhead is comparable to a mid-level god. It's worth 50,000 mid-grade divine crystals. Lu Zhantian said excitedly. He had saved up for more than 1,000 years and was in a high position. However, he had only saved 300,000 mid-grade divine crystals. That was all he had. Now that he had obtained 50,000 mid-grade divine crystals, he was obviously very happy. Yi Qinghan thought about it and directly inserted the godhead of the giant mountain beast into the blade core slot of the heavy berserk saber. He then sealed the core slot. The heavy berserk saber was like an ancient divine weapon. It emitted a terrifying aura and pressured Lu Zhantian until he started to retreat. Boom, boom, boom. The giant mountain beast was unwilling to become the blade core. Its soul fiercely resisted, trying to break free from Yi Qinghan's restraint. Humph! You better be obedient. Otherwise, don't blame me for killing you. Yi Qinghan angrily shouted and increased the confinement of the 5 elements. The giant mountain beast immediately became obedient. However, it continued to growl and was extremely unwilling. You're so cheap. Why do you have to scare it to make it obedient? The divine bird was speechless. Yi Qinghan was very satisfied. Now that he had the godhead of the giant mountain beast as the blade core and the soul of the giant mountain beast as the tool spirit, at least for the current him, it was definitely enough. Let's continue. No matter what the next treasure is, it's all yours. I want this godhead of the giant mountain beast, Yi Qinghan said indifferently. Lu Zhantian didn't refuse. He nodded and followed beside Mu Xiaoqi. He whispered, "Be careful. The deeper we go, the more dangerous it will be." Emperor Yi didn't make a move from the beginning to the end. He quietly followed behind Yi Qinghan, holding the human emperor's zither in his arms as they went deeper and deeper. Mountains rose and fell. The sunlight finally penetrated the confinement and shone on the faces of the 4. The 4 of them were in high spirits. They didn't have the slightest bit of fear. Instead, they were even more excited and expectant. In front of them was a verdant valley. The path was covered in wild grass. There were broken limbs and bloodstains everywhere. The sword scar halfway up the mountain hadn't been erased. The powerful aura of a superior didn't disperse for a long time. The aura of death was abnormally dense. Even the cleansing of thousands of years couldn't wash away the cruel killing intent here. This was the entrance to God-ending mountain. If they went deeper, they would be in a vast battlefield. The ancient battlefield of the past. The austere aura rushed towards them. A sense of danger rushed towards the 4 like maggots in their bones. Chapter 564. A gust of cold wind blew by, causing them to tremble. The austere aura was like maggots in the bones, directly penetrating their divine clothes and entering their bodies. It was too strange. The depths made one's hair stand on end. A gust of cold wind made the 4 super experts unable to resist. If they continued to go deeper, they might really be in danger. Look. You see, this divine bird never lies. There are at least a few almighty divine beasts in the depth. Moreover, this place is so strange. I can actually feel that there are treasures and opportunities here. This is clearly AF** King Temptation. The divine bird said irritably. Actually, I can also feel that there are opportunities for me here, so I won't give up, Yi Qinghan said firmly. Lu Zhantian and the other 2 looked at each other in dismay. The 3 of them actually had the same feeling. This kind of temptation was fatal. That was why so many people rushed forward and died in the battlefield of God Extinction Mountain. Even if there were strong cultivators who went deep and could retreat, they would die in their own residences. Moreover, they would die very miserably. The divine herbs in the valley swayed. It was unknown how many years they had been growing, but none of them could transform. Their realm was already comparable to that of a venerable emperor. Every divine herb was a temptation. The divine herbs stretched all the way to the depth. It made one unable to move. The star-twining vine involuntarily stretched out its vines. It didn't care about the danger and directly wrapped around the divine herb, instantly absorbing its essence. In the world of foodies, it couldn't see any danger. It even took the initiative to drag Yi Qinghan into the depth. The divine bird snorted, "Damn foodie, how can I be your accompanying divine beast? You're simply a disgrace to this divine bird's glorious image." Follow me. Yi Qinghan took the initiative to walk forward. The origin of fire erupted, blocking the cold wind ahead and causing raging flames to soar into the sky. The four of them were responsible for 4 directions, going deeper and deeper. Mu Xiaoqi's cultivation was the lowest, but she had the reincarnation mirror, so she was enough to defend the rear. Lu Zhantian was responsible for the right, and Emperor Yi was responsible for the left. Their front, back, left, and right were tightly guarded. Yi Qinghan was only responsible for the front, leaving a footprint in each step. The star-twining vine was in charge of extending its vines to pick the divine herbs. If it found any divine treasure materials, they would be taken and sent into the universe ring. The divine bird suddenly looked up at the sky. Dark clouds covered the sky, making it impossible to see through the void source. It stretched out its claws and pulled the cloud beast to its side. It shouted, "This divine bird is the boss. In the future, you will protect me. You're in charge of keeping watch above." The cloud beast was dissatisfied. It bared its fangs, wishing that it could tear the divine bird apart with its claws. But without Yi Qinghan's permission, it didn't dare to do so. Sha sha sha, the 4 of them were very careful and moved very slowly. Yi Qinghan's eyes were like torches. Even the slightest sound would alert him. He looked at the bottom of a dried-up river that was still gurgling. The surroundings were filled with red flowers and green willows. It was indescribably beautiful. However, he did not feel that there was anything attractive about this place. Only a gloomy and cold aura followed him like a shadow. The deeper they went, the stronger the calling became. However, there was also a sense of danger. It was an irresistible temptation, but it also tormented one's spirit. The divine bird had an extremely strong premonition of danger. It was driven mad and wanted to retreat. With the protection of 4 great experts, the star-twining vine's ascension to the divine shrine, and the cloud beast by its side, it felt an overwhelming sense of security and became even more anxious. The valley was very long and several thousand meters long. The 4 of them walked for more than 2 hours. The star-twining vine had picked all the divine herbs in the valley, leaving only weeds. It had eaten its fill and was beginning to accumulate food. There was a divine tree in front of them full of golden fruits filled with patterns of the great Tao. It was obvious at a glance that they were supreme treasures. They had not been picked for tens of thousands of years and were completely ripe. A single fruit could be sold for thousands of low-grade divine crystals outside. There were at least a few thousand on this tree, almost crushing the branches. This is a divine spirit peach. Apart from some powerful manor heads or divine kingdom palaces that transplanted some, the others have long gone extinct. A divine peach of this age is worth 100 mid-grade divine crystals. It is even priceless. We are rich. Mu Xiaoqi was experienced and knowledgeable. She had once eaten a peach like this when she was young, and the taste was still lingering in her mind. The peach tree grew at the bottom of the mountain and was surrounded by weed. There were some poisonous snakes hanging from the peach tree, constantly flicking their tongues. Screech! The god-slaying eagle rushed out of Yi Qinghan and Emperor Ye's bodies. The 2 battle eagles swooped down on the poisonous snakes and eliminated them all. Roar! A giant python rushed out from behind the peach tree. It was about 300 meters long and was like a dragon. It swung its giant tail and smashed it viciously at the god-slaying eagle. Screech! The divine dragon in Lu Zhantian's body rushed out instantly and opened its fangs to bite the giant python's body. The giant dragon and the giant python intertwined and twisted. It was enough to break a mountain. The giant python and the giant dragon rolled and smashed the surrounding ancient trees and mountains. It was extremely tragic and blood splattered everywhere. However, a dragon was a dragon. Even if it was a hybrid product, it was still much stronger than the giant python. The giant python that was 300 meters long was slowly swallowed by the giant dragon. The giant dragon's body became bloated and it could not even move. After the guardian beasts were eliminated, it was still the start-whining vine that harvested the peaches. The divine bird could not help but rush over and took 2 divine peaches. It threw one to the cloud beast and squatted on Yi Qinghan's shoulder to enjoy the delicious food. "Let's transplant this peach tree back to the crazy sect?" The divine bird took a few bites and immediately fell in love with the taste. It said greedily and no longer remembered the danger. Emperor Yi shook the Qian Kuan ring in her hand. Her Qian Kuan ring was made by the god of sky of the 9 serenities. The internal space was enough to store a mountain range. There were many divine herbs planted in it, so it was not lacking this divine tree. Yi Qinghan walked forward and waved his hand wildly. He directly cut off all the mountain rocks within 100 meters of the divine tree. He did not hurt its roots and even pulled up the soil. His terrifying physical body was enough to move mountains and shake the world. Lu Zhantian took a deep breath. He had always thought that his physical body was invincible. Only now did he realize that Yi Qinghan's physical body had reached a heaven-defying stage. Yi Qinghan crushed the mountain rocks with his feet and held the divine tree in the air. He shouted in a low voice, "My son, move it away!" Whoosh! Emperor Yi waved her hand and moved the Qian Kuan ring to take the divine tree away. "Little girl, how about I exchange my Qian Kuan ring with you?" The divine bird looked at Emperor Yi flatteringly. It wanted nothing more than to snatch Emperor Yi's Qian Kuan ring. Emperor Yi pouted and clenched his fist. He said in a show of force, "Lowly bird, is your skin itchy after not beating you for a few days?" Ha ha! Mu Xiaoqi couldn't help but laugh. It could be considered a success for a spirit pet to be able to do this. Yi Qinghan had long ignored the divine bird's shamelessness. Recently, he had been very low-key in order to break through to the 11th rank. Otherwise, he would have become famous a few days ago. Yi Qinghan gave all the divine peaches and divine herbs in the Qian Kuan ring to Emperor Yi. These things had to be shared with Lu Zhantian and Mu Xiaoqi. He could not take all of them alone. "Let's enter God-ending mountain. Be careful. Once there is danger, immediately gather. Do not fight alone," Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. Chapter 565. As soon as Yi Qinghan stepped out of the valley and entered the eerie battlefield behind God Extinction Mountain, the waste token hanging beside the 9 Remoteness Master suddenly shone with a golden light. The urgent warning made the 9 Remoteness Master open his eyes and see Yi Qinghan and the others through the plane's space-time. The 9 Remoteness Master's weathered face showed a hint of surprise. He had placed a strand of consciousness on Yi Qinghan's teleportation token. Although it was not much, it was enough to serve as a warning. When the threat came from a mighty god who had surpassed the middle extreme path, it would automatically send out a warning, allowing him to detect Yi Qinghan's location in advance. The 9 Remoteness Master looked down at the mythical plane from billions of light-years away. His eyes were like torches as he looked at the eerie road of bones. The countless corpses had not been weathered yet, and the smell of rotting corpses was unusually strong. The divinity of various elemental great daos and precepts intertwined, evolving into a different kind of hell. It looked a bit like an ancient battlefield that had been formed for at least hundreds of thousands of years. This was a small place, and it was the border of the mythical plane. There were no superior gods willing to come here, so even if there was something special about this place, the superior gods would not know. If Yi Qinghan had not gone deep this time, the 9 Remoteness Master would not have been able to investigate this place. This is actually the slumbering place of the 3rd generation. The soul of the sorcerer god was awakened by countless battles, and this place became a cursed place. The 9 Remoteness Master murmured. The 1st generation of the sorcerer god was the first batch of gods born at the beginning of the chaos. They were the real giant gods of chaos. They had great fortune, reversed reincarnation, and were immortal. However, such existences also had conflicts of interest. They fought with each other and shattered the chaotic universe, evolving into countless small planes, middle planes, and even the upper plane according to legend was the center of the chaotic universe. The chaotic universe was destroyed because of the war of the giant gods of chaos. The heavenly axiom died, and in a final strike in anger, it killed all the giant gods of chaos. Those immortal gods disappeared from then on, buried in a place called the giant god's tomb. The giant god's tomb was a floating graveyard that had long disappeared in the boundless universe. No one knew if those undying and indestructible people were truly killed by the heavenly Tao, nor did they know if they could reverse the cycle of reincarnation and come back again to stir up the situation. Perhaps many people had already forgotten. The first generation of the witch god was one of the giant gods of chaos. He was the heaven-battling witch god, defied the heavens, and fought with the great fiend celestial Lai Tsong for hegemony in the world. The heaven-battling witch god was particular about the harmony of the world and equality of all living beings. The great fiend celestial cult wished for the fiend celestial cult to unify the world. As the supreme god, all living beings in the world had to submit to him. Thus the war began from then on. Lives were plunged into misery and suffering as corpses piled up for tens of thousands of feet. Giant gods of primal chaos fell one after another. In the end, they angered the heavenly Tao and perished together. Those giant gods of chaos had children, and their sons and daughters were respectfully called the primordial gods. However, they were not immortal and indestructible, and they could not reverse time and space. In the end, they all died of old age. The sorcerer race also continued, but the sorcerer god was getting weaker and weaker with each generation, while the demonic religion became more and more prosperous. In the end, the sorcerer race was wiped out several times in a row, and only a few of them were left alive, hiding in small planes. The 9 remoteness master and the 5th sorcerer god were from the same era, but the sorcerer god who was sleeping here was actually 1 era older than the 9 remoteness master. This era did not refer to the current era, but to the era of the gods, which was equivalent to the lifetime of a top-level god or even a master god. However, the master god had not appeared for millions of years, and the 9 remoteness master had never seen a second one, even though his cultivation level had surpassed that of a high-level god. The 9 remoteness master was well aware that the sorcerer god's curse was ridiculously powerful and could even kill a high-level god, but he did not stop Yi Qinghan's actions. This was because Yi Qinghan himself had the bloodline of the sorcerer race, and he had even inherited the sorcerer race's legacy. Yi Qinghan was destined to fight the demonic religion's experts. He had inherited the sorcerer race's legacy, and this was a fate that he could not escape from. Yi Qinghan's bloodline of the sorcerer race came from Ming Ke. That one night of intimacy had caused his bloodline to merge with Ming Ke-er's, and he even had the 5 elements body, which was no different from the high-level bloodline of the sorcerer race in the past. Maybe it's an opportunity or maybe it's death. It all depends on your luck. If you die, boy, you won't be able to escape from me. The 9 remoteness master snorted and looked on coldly. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Yi Qinghan and the others advanced slowly. As soon as they entered the depths of the battlefield, a strange power of the contract began to slowly enter their bodies. There were no symptoms, but it was slow and orderly, slowly eroding their souls and bloodlines. Yi Qinghan's heartbeat quickened. He felt as if his soul was being adhered by something. The power of his bloodline began to intertwine with the strange power of the contract. However, the curse was illusory. Yi Qinghan only felt fear and trepidation, but he did not know that the curse had already taken effect. Unknowingly, the curse came into contact with the power of the sorcerer race's bloodline and was automatically broken down by the 5 elements. It did not harm Yi Qinghan, but Lu Zhantian was not spared. The power of the curse was like a maggot in one's bones. His blood flowed several times faster, and so did his godhead. He mobilized endless divine energy to suppress the curse, and the speed at which his blood flowed was also about twice as fast as usual. Mu Xiaoqi's cultivation was the weakest, so her blood flowed and Godhead's divine energy flowed 1.5 times faster than usual. Emperor Ye's soul was one with the heavens, so the power of the curse could not affect him in the slightest. The sorcerer god could curse any living being, but he could not curse the heavens and earth. Cursing Emperor Yi was the same as cursing the heavens, so Emperor Yi had an advantage over Yi Qinghan. After all, the curse first went from the soul to the bloodline. However, the curse could not even penetrate Emperor Ye's soul, so how could it affect the bloodline? "How are you guys?" Yi Qinghan hurriedly asked when he noticed that something was wrong with Lu Zhantian and Mu Xiaoqi. "My blood flow and divine energy flow are much faster than usual. It's at least twice as fast," Lu Zhantian said in a low voice. Mu Xiaoqi's face was pale. She finally understood how those people died. Those experts' divine energy was completely drained, their souls were weak, and they were hallucinating. Moreover, strange moss grew on the surface of their bodies due to the curse, just like plant. It was very terrifying. "My divine energy is flowing too fast. My soul seems to be getting weaker and weaker. No. There's a great battle ahead." Mu Xiaoqi immediately began to cry out. Her face was full of panic. It was obvious that she had fallen into an illusion. But Yi Qinghan directly knocked Mu Xiaoqi out with his palm and suppressed her soul to prevent her from harming herself. He poured his divine sense into her mind and found that her soul was dim, as if she had already died. He couldn't help but be shocked. This is indeed a bit like the sorcerer tribe's nature clan curse technique. Yi Qinghan had seen the nature sorcerer tribe's experts in action before. The curse technique was extremely strange and could harm people without them noticing. It was very difficult to guard against. Chapter 566. Yi Qinghan realized why this place was so ominous. It wasn't because it was an ancient battlefield, but because of the witch tribe's curse. There were broken divine artifacts and corpses everywhere. Not a single blade of grass grew in this vast territory. Even after tens of thousands of years, it was still stained with blood. Broken weapons were inserted into the rocky earth, and some corpses were also nailed to the ground. It was incomparably miserable. "My son, take them out of here and help them suppress the curse. I'll go in and take a look. There's a witch tribe curse here, so it must be because of something from the witch tribe. Maybe it can save them." Yi Qinghan stared into the depths and decided to go in. It might not be a problem to retreat now, but Lu Zhantian and Mu Xiaoqi were cursed. They had to find a way to save them. "You go in alone." Emperor Yi frowned, unwilling. "I'm fine. The witch tribe's curse shouldn't target me, but Brother Lu and Princess Qi can't do it. They need to be taken care of." "You stay outside," Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. Lu Zhantian's expression was ugly. He wanted to refuse Yi Qinghan's kindness, but his divine power was flowing too fast. His soul was getting weaker and weaker. He couldn't withstand it at all. Once he lost his mind, he and Mu Xiaoqi would suffer. "This divine bird will go take care of them too." The divine bird didn't want to go in. Its eyes flickered as it wanted to break the contract with Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan smiled disdainfully. He grabbed the divine bird's neck and led it into the depth. Their figures became more and more blurred. Yi Qinghan collected all the broken divine artifacts. Countless vines swept past, and only some broken bones were left, which were all collected by the star-twisting vine. These broken divine weapons were still precious treasures. They could be forged again and made into new ones. The crazy sect lacked these treasures. Some of the ordinary divine weapons had already decayed, so the start-whining vine didn't even bother to take them. Those powerful divine bones had also been taken away by Yi Qinghan. There were also many complete divine weapons here before, but they were all taken away by others, even though those people had died in the end. The deeper they went, the more divine weapons there were. There were also some powerful complete divine weapons. These places had never been set foot in by the later generations. The ravines were connected to the sky, and they were all carved out by the swords and sabers of the experts. The sword marks revealed the profound meaning of the sword Dao, outlining the tragic situation of the past. If a sword Dao expert cultivated here, he would be able to advance 1,000 miles in a day. Yi Qinghan raised his eyes and looked over. The dense white mist contrasted with the color of blood, and under the illumination of the sun, it was so gorgeous. There was a demon in the beauty, and it stole one's soul. The big eyes under his thick eyebrows were filled with flames, and the 5 elements surged in his divine body. In the depths of the battlefield, a cold wind suddenly howled and blew his black hair back. The austere atmosphere became even denser. Yi Qinghan fiercely stood in place, extremely vigilant. Whoosh! Whoosh 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 whoosh! The dense cold wind rolled up the yellow sand and filled the sky. The cold wind whistled past, sharp and ear-piercing, like the mournful cries of the dead. It made one's hair stand on end. Damn it! This place is even more disgusting than the 9 serenities. I can't even feel the slightest bit of the aura of the supreme treasure. But why are there divine weapons everywhere? The divine bird roared madly at Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan frowned, and the fierce wind messed up his black hair. Suddenly, intermittent voices came from the depths of the battlefield, as if they were coming from the depths of hell. It was unknown which era the old voice came from, and which era it was going to travel to. Yi Qinghan tilted his head to listen, and his handsome face revealed a trace of seriousness. Sinners who disturb this God's slumber, you will be cursed, your souls will return to hell, and your divine bodies will become filthy, covered with moss. You will experience the world's most terrifying torture, your souls will be tortured. Many of the words were intermittent and incomplete. The cold and hoarse voice was emotionless, without even the slightest hint of anger. It didn't seem like the words of a human at all. You disturb the slumber of the dead of my shaman race. You will all die of fear. At this moment, the divine bird finally calmed down. It also heard the curse technique, a curse from the shaman race. It was a curse from the shaman god. Although it didn't know who started this curse, if it could curse a powerhouse on the level of a palace master to death, Yi Qinghan definitely wouldn't be able to avoid it. Yi Qinghan suddenly felt fear and trepidation, as if his soul had suffered a heavy blow. He felt as if he had personally experienced this terrifying scene, as if he were an enhanced version of Shao Warstar. It made his entire body shiver and his eyes turn fierce. Even someone as strong as him, who had the 5 elements body and the bloodline and inheritance of the shaman race, couldn't escape this curse. The shaman god's curse ignored everything and could curse all living beings. I, as the shaman race's 3rd-generation shaman god, I curse that anyone who steps into Jueshan Ridge will experience 1,000 tribulations and die without a burial ground. Bang! The final curse was like a thunderclap that exploded within Yi Qinghan's spiritual sea. The explosion shook the heavens and the earth, stirring up Yi Qinghan's sea of bitterness. The power of faith tumbled and black clouds tumbled in the depths of his spiritual sea. The blue dragon arm rushed towards the wild saber, and the 7-foot wild saber was instantly wrapped in black fog. The godhood within the saber hilt was invaded. Yi Qinghan felt the aura of true death. The black fog brought with it endless negative emotions as it rushed towards his soul. Whether it was his soul in his spiritual sea or his soul hiding within his godhood, it was impossible for him to avoid it. The 5 elements were unable to stop the invasion of the black fog. The negative emotions followed him like a shadow. All sorts of cruel and brutal scenes of slaughter rushed into the depths of his soul, as if he had personally experienced them. Wah! A black shadow flashed. Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank and he involuntarily lifted his saber to defend himself. But this was only an illusion of his soul. The illusion constantly consumed his soul force, causing his soul to become increasingly tired and weak. Once his soul was exhausted to the point where he could no longer resist, he would die a miserable death from the curse. Yi Qinghan's mind was in chaos. His hands couldn't help but want to move to fight to the death. But every time he lifted his saber, the vicious beings and powerhouses would automatically dissipate. Even so, his soul couldn't help but think about them. How could this be? Yi Qinghan was shocked. He stabbed his saber into the ground and then sat down to the side. He calmed his mind and focused his mind. The 10,000 Buddha pagoda erupted once more. Although the effect wasn't great, it was enough to calm one's heart. In the past, the mansion master hadn't ventured here, otherwise he wouldn't have been able to return to his mansion and would have died here. Not too far in front of Yi Qinghan, there were many corpses that hadn't been weathered yet. They should be powerhouses that had died in the last 1,000 years. Their faces were fierce and panicked, as if they were afraid of something. Their faces were purple and there were marks on their neck. Moss covered their arms. Fire! In my name, burn away all filth under the heavens. All evil shall not approach me. Hua! Yi Qinghan's surroundings ignited with the flames of war. An 11th grade divine flame instantly covered an area of 100 meters. The flaming dragon in the sky roared and swallowed everything. The earth was burned to nothing. Metal! In my name, resist all evil techniques. Wood! In my name, evolve all kinds of vitality. Water! In my name, transform fire into yin and yang. Reincarnation appears and devour all sources that aren't mine. Earth! In my name, combine the 5 elements and forge my golden body. Yi Qinghan's palms formed seals that constantly transformed. The 5 elements war dragon coiled around his body and roared into the depths. Chapter 567. The 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth gathered together. The heavenly dragon streaked across the clouds, and the scorching sun tore through the shackles. It burned away all the filth and evil energy, and the blood-stained world became barren. Yi Qinghan's eyes were like limpid autumn water. With a thought, the world mourned. With a thought, the world became barren. The entire battlefield was devoid of life. I said there must be water. Yi Qinghan moved his finger, and the purest source of water in the world moved the water from the heavens. It whistled through the sky and poured down, drowning the yellow sand and cleansing the mortal world. The earth churns, and the source of earth appears. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The entire withered battlefield rose and fell. The sand and stones were drowned by the earth, and the barren battlefield became fertile land. I said there must be life. The thousands of vines of the star-twining vine broke and pierced into the earth, taking root and sprouting. Yi Qinghan casually scattered the seeds of the divine medicine, which were stimulated by the source of the 5 elements. They quickly broke through the earth and began to grow. Although there were not many of them, and although it was only a small area, it became the only place of life within a radius of countless miles. There was life in death, just like there was hope in a hopeless situation. Yi Qinghan focused on his own matters, and was no longer disturbed by the negative emotions brought about by the curse technique. Not only did his soul not become weak because of the curse technique, it became stronger because of his current focus. The negative emotions were gradually expelled from Yi Qinghan's divinity and sea of consciousness. His eyes were deep, and everything in front of him was clear. The fog could not cover his eyes, and the curse technique could no longer bind him. Boom! Yi Qinghan held Crazy Sword in his hand, and stepped into the ditch, splashing up dirty water and mud as he went deeper and deeper. The sound of the curse technique was still floating, as if it would last forever. Suddenly, an afterimage flashed past in front of him like an illusion. Yi Qinghan's pupils constricted. He clearly saw a peerless figure dressed in the witch tribe's attire, and he could not help but bristle. Is that a witch tribe member? The divine bird's eyes flashed, and it laid on Yi Qinghan's shoulder and asked doubtfully, "You saw it too?" Yi Qinghan held Crazy Sword tightly and said in a low voice, "Nonsense. The sorcerer tribe's curse technique is useless against me. What I see here is definitely not an illusion." The divine bird said confidently, "It was too fast. I didn't see it clearly, but it seemed to be the clothes of the shaman tribe. However, there are some differences." Yi Qinghan thought for a moment and said through gritted teeth, "The third sorcerer god is buried here. I wonder if there are any more shamans guarding this place. If there are, then that person just now should be the tombkeeper. If not, then that person just now." When Yi Qinghan said this, he could not help but shiver. This kind of thing was like a mortal seeing a ghost. Goosebumps rose all over his body. "Let's go and take a look. This divine bird's interest is piqued. I've never seen a divine soul that has been dead for millions or even tens of millions of years that hasn't been destroyed. Even my ancestors have never seen it before, ha ha ha," the divine bird said excitedly. Yi Qinghan turned his head to look at the divine bird on his shoulder. He pursed his lips and asked, "Are you all right? If he really is the third sorcerer god, do you know what will happen if you meet him?" "What? Is there anything in this world that you're afraid of?" the divine bird said disdainfully, as if it had seen through Yi Qinghan. It said, "Hurry up and follow him. Who knows, we might discover something." Yi Qinghan grinned. The divine bird understood him. No matter how strange the world was, he was not afraid. He always wanted to find out the truth. Therefore, he raised his saber and rushed into the depth. He was like the wind, traceless and without a trace. The afterimage was still floating. It looked like a spiritual body, but it also looked like a real body of flesh and blood. It was clearly not far in front of him, but it also looked like it was far away. It was blurry and unfathomable. Yi Qinghan kept following behind. The more he looked, the more alarmed he became. The afterimage did not seem to have noticed him and continued to float into the depth. "He is the guardian of the third sorcerer god's tomb. I don't know how many years he has been dead. Don't get too close," a voice suddenly exploded in Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. It shook Yi Qinghan, causing him to tremble. He felt that the voice was somewhat familiar. "Nine Nether, Master?" Yi Qinghan frowned and asked in a low voice. You still know to call me Master. My efforts were not in vain." The Nine Nether Master snorted coldly. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. Was a superior god priest really so powerful? Even though he was on the 18th level of the Nine Nether, he could actually see through the shackles of time and space, observe the mythical plane, and transmit his voice at will? "You have the bloodline and inheritance of the sorcerer tribe. If you follow him to the tomb of the third sorcerer god, you might be able to obtain the inheritance of the ancient sorcerer god. However, fate can never be broken. After you obtain the inheritance, the enemy you will face will not be so easy to deal with," the Nine Nether Master reminded in a low voice. "What enemy?" Yi Qinghan asked curiously. They were the first batch of living beings in the universe, immortal and eternal. Among them, the two strongest were the first sorcerer god and Emperor Yu. Emperor Yu's actions were extreme. He wanted to lead the gods, refine the heavenly way, and become the supreme god in the world, the father god respected by all gods. Hence, he was called the great demon god. He fought with the sorcerer god countless times, but their divine power was on par. In the end, he roped in other gods to join the war, causing the first era of gods' destruction to descend. Their descendants passed on the legacy, and they also passed on their hatred and unfulfilled wishes. When you meet the people of the Fiend Celestial cult, you will understand that the hatred is innate. When one side is not destroyed, the hatred will be passed on forever. Now that the sorcerer tribe is in decline, there are only some weak ones left. You may be the strongest sorcerer tribe. Sooner or later, you will face the people of the fiend celestial cult. The Nine Nether Master reminded calmly. Yi Qinghan's black eyes turned. It was the first time he had heard of the fiend celestial cult and the so-called great demon god. He frowned and asked, Demon god? He's not human? He's human, but because of his way of doing things, he was called demon god by others. The first batch of creatures born were either humans or divine beasts, such as the chaotic green dragon, white tiger, black tortoise, and divine phoenix. They controlled the four directions, stabilized the chaotic universe, and transcended the world. However, the human gods were still led by the sorcerer god and Emperor Yu. They were the master gods who controlled the great Tao, laws, and various elements respectively. Some of them were loyal to the sorcerer god, while others were loyal to Emperor Yu. They formed two camps. Now, the demon god camp is missing, and the sorcerer tribe camp is almost extinct, the Nine Nether Master said calmly. Which camp are you from? Yi Qinghan was curious. Someone of the Nine Nether Masters level should be able to participate in a war of that level, right? Me? When I was born, there was already a winner between the two sides. The sorcerer tribe was almost extinct, and only a few experts were seriously injured. They fled in different directions, and each inherited a batch of witchcraft. They lived on in small planes, so I don't belong to any camp. However, when I was young, I met the fourth sorcerer god and received some favors. As for the fifth sorcerer god, the Nine Nether Master sighed and stopped talking. After a long time, the Nine Nether Master warned again. The guardian of the third sorcerer god's tomb has no wisdom or emotions, only the will to protect. Once you get too close, he will attack you involuntarily. With your cultivation, you can't even withstand one blow. I can't save you in time, so you can only follow from afar and find the tomb of the third sorcerer god. Use the bloodline of the sorcerer tribe to awaken the inheritance of the sorcerer tribe. Chapter 568. After the Nine Remoteness Master gave his warning, he left without leaving any traces behind. Only then did Yi Qinghan realize how terrifying that shadow was. It was actually the guardian of the third sorcerer god's tomb. As for how long it had been, perhaps only the Nine Remoteness Master knew. After the fifth sorcerer god, no more sorcerer gods were born, and the sorcerer race was almost wiped out. There was a branch of the sorcerer race in the endless realms that was barely surviving, and they were unable to reproduce the legends of the ancient sorcerer race. Yi Qinghan owed the sorcerer race, or at least, he owed Ming Ke. Ming Ke was killed, and her soul entered the Nine Remoteness realm. However, Feng Wuxie was unable to find her through his master. Ming Ke's soul had gone missing after reincarnation. I don't know if you have reincarnated, nor do I know where to find you. However, I will try my best to help the sorcerer race find the ancient inheritance to comfort your soul. Yi Qinghan's voice was hoarse as he mumbled to himself. He watched as the shadow disappeared into a barren valley, and he carefully followed after it. The valley was extremely plain, and it looked no different from the valleys in the outside world. There were only a few weeds growing halfway up the mountain, and the traces of millions of years had made it hard for even a single blade of grass to grow. There were no caves, no tombstones, nothing. This is the burial place of the third sorcerer god? Yi Qinghan was a little puzzled. He kept looking around, but he still couldn't find any entrance. If the Nine Remoteness Master said that this is the burial place of the third sorcerer god, then it must be. Let me take a look. There must be some kind of camouflage around the burial place of the third sorcerer god. Otherwise, it would have been discovered by others long ago, and we wouldn't even have the chance to look for opportunities here. The divine bird said excitedly. It was the divine bird's lifelong dream to be able to search for treasures. If it could dig out the third sorcerer god's tomb, its achievements would definitely surpass its ancestor. The divine bird solemnly looked around. There was a tall mountain in front of them, blocking their path. This meant that the afterimage had indeed disappeared here. Yi Qinghan was also sizing up the area. After searching for a long time, he still couldn't find anything special about this place. The sorcerer god's curses became clearer and clearer. No matter how hard Yi Qinghan tried to divert his attention, he could not block out the curse. The black mist once again wrapped around the godhead and wrapped around the heavy frenzy blade. The back of the blade ignited in flames. The 11th grade divine fire burned the filthy evil energy into nothingness, emitting a foul stench that made the divine bird roll its eyes. Yi Qinghan closed his eyes and listened to the source of the curse. It was illusory, as if it came from the ground, but it also seemed to come from the sky. It came from every corner. Helpless, he opened his eyes and looked at the crisscrossing rocks. Most of them had been smoothed out by the passage of time, and new rocks had been born. Suddenly, Yi Qinghan's eyes fixed on a huge rock. That rock contained endless vicissitudes and history, and it was impossible to tell its age. It's impossible for a rock to stand there for millions of years without being destroyed. If it can stand there for millions of years without being destroyed, then it must be a rock that has been specially treated. Yi Qinghan lifted his feet and walked towards the mountainside in front of him. It was almost one with the mountain, and it was no different from an ordinary rock. The only difference was that it had a longer history than the other rock. If other people saw it, they might not even care. Yi Qinghan swung the heavy frenzy blade and tested it lightly. He realized that the rock was not easy to destroy. As long as he used his divine power to strike the rock, it would emit patterns of the great Tao and bounce the divine power away. "It's here," Yi Qinghan said softly. The divine bird curiously flew around the rock a few times. It couldn't help but be curious. With its reputation as a divine bird, it actually couldn't find anything special about this rock. How could it hide in the huge sorcerer's tomb? Yi Qinghan put away the heavy frenzy blade and reached out to pull the rock out. He realized that he couldn't move it at all. Even if he used all his strength, he couldn't move it at all. He turned his head left and right a few times, but he still couldn't move it. He couldn't help but size it up curiously and ponder. "Try smashing it down." The divine bird descended from the sky and stepped on it ruthlessly. Whoosh! The mountain suddenly split into two, and a huge black hole appeared. It directly swallowed Yi Qinghan. Before Yi Qinghan could react, the mountain and the mountain merged back into one. Boom! His vision was pitch black. Yi Qinghan fell straight down and crashed into the stone floor. His divine body ached like a mortal falling from the sky. Io, the divine bird, cried out miserably as its head hit the ground first. It was dizzy and couldn't stand steadily. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes wide and looked at the pitch-black space. He couldn't even see his fingers if he stretched out his hand. It was as if he was in a completely sealed space. He moved his feet and felt as if he was stepping on bones. The crisp sound of bones breaking rang out incessantly. What followed was silence. Deathly stillness. It was as if this was hell. There was no sound, no life, no sunlight, nothing. "Fire!" Yi Qinghan whispered. He moved his finger and a wisp of flame appeared on it, illuminating a distance of more than 10 meters. The flame on his finger moved gently, which shocked him. There was wind here, which meant that there was ventilation. This isn't a sealed space. Could it be that we weren't under the mountain just now? Yi Qinghan was astonished. He looked around and realized that this place was like a huge underground palace. The buildings were all strange and ancient, and the oil lamps had long since been extinguished. There was a passage blocked by a stone tablet in the middle of the road. Yi Qinghan went forward to take a look at the stone tablet and realized that there wasn't a single word on it. There were only 3 ghastly sword marks. Wordless sword tablet. Yi Qinghan frowned. He didn't understand why this sword tablet was placed here. Yi Qinghan lit up the oil lamps again, and saw that this underground palace was more luxurious than any palace hall he had ever seen. Every item was millions of years old, and had been preserved to this day. Corpses were strewn everywhere. Some were holding divine weapons while others had been strangled to death by themselves. The eerie golden bones revealed the profound mysteries of the laws. All of them had been worshipped by an extreme middle-stage expert. It was a pity that they had all died, and they had all died without a sound. Yi Qinghan raised his eyes and turned around. He looked at the stone door and saw a few soul-stirring words. His pupils shrank as he took a few steps back. Which god's tomb? Death to all intruders. Thump, thump, thump. These words were like divine weapons that pierced Yi Qinghan's heart. His heartbeat quickened as he looked at the corpses of the experts. They had all died tragically. From their skulls, he could tell that these people had either been scared to death or starved to death. Worshippers also needed to replenish their energy. If they didn't replenish their energy for a year or two, they might be fine, as their divine power would be enough to support them. But 8 to 10 years would have an impact. 1,000 years or 100 years would cause them to go crazy. What about 10,000 years, 100,000 years, or even 1,000,000 years? After a long time, Yi Qinghan realized that he couldn't cultivate here. There was no divine qi or spirit qi. Once he finished eating all the spirit fruits and spirit herbs on him, he could only wait for death. This won't do. I have to find a way to get out quickly, Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. At this moment, the divine bird found a universe ring in this huge palace. After the Emperor Blood recognized it as its master, it collected all the divine weapons and low-level sorcerer race secret techniques that were scattered on the ground. These low-level sorcerer race secret techniques were only for the third generation of the witch god. But to Yi Qinghan, or to the current mythical plane, they were definitely priceless secret techniques. Their value was immeasurable. Chapter 569. The divine bird scurried around and collected everything it saw, even if it was useless. It claimed that these were all antiques and that people would be willing to collect them. Yi Qinghan's heart wasn't as big as his. Right now, the most important thing was to figure out how to get out. The walls around them were all protected by a superior divine formation. Even an extreme mid-tier almighty god couldn't break through it, let alone a lesser god like Yi Qinghan. There weren't any mechanisms in the surroundings. It was a smooth work of the gods. It was as if it was made by nature. After circling around a few times, Yi Qinghan finally returned to the sword steel. The 3 sword scars contained supreme swordsmanship. It was as if the sword had pierced through his soul with a single glance. He couldn't look at it anymore. Yi Qinghan squinted his eyes and stared at the sword scars. The blade light and sword shadows danced in his sea of consciousness. The speed at which his soul was consumed wasn't any easier than fighting a mid-level god. Puff. Swordsmanship was difficult to understand and contained supreme profoundness. Yi Qinghan couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of essence blood after looking at it for less than half an incense stick's time. If only Xiaoqiue and Gu Qingyu were here. They both specialized in swordsmanship and would definitely be excited to see this sword steel. As for you, TSK, the divine bird shook its head and said disdainfully. Yi Qinghan sneered. He specialized in the way of the blade and only wanted to achieve great success in it. With a blade in hand, the world would submit to him. He disdained swordsmanship, but it didn't mean that he couldn't cultivate it. Boom! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and pressed it on the sword steel. He directly attached his divine sense to the sword scars and forcefully absorbed the profoundness of swordsmanship. He even wanted to deduce how the 3 sword scars were formed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sword light in Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness pierced through heaven and earth. It wanted to tear apart the soul and shatter the heaven and earth. The sword energy seemed to have materialized and tore apart the divine body. Boom! Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness created a small person. He held berserk and continuously slashed at the green sword light. The collision caused the soul to scatter and the sea of bitterness to surge. It caused him to bleed from his 7 orifices and the bones in his hand to be pierced by the sword energy. Yi Qinghan furrowed his brows, enduring the excruciating pain. He pushed the Heavenly Dipper 108 heaven slashing saber art to major completion. His 3 godheads rotated at the same time, suppressing the sword intent coming from the sword mark. His soul split into 2, one side suppressing the profound mysteries of the sword Tao, the other comprehending the profound mysteries of the sword Tao. These 3 sword scars were supreme mysteries of the Tao of the sword. They were not something that could be cultivated in a short period of time. Especially for someone like Yi Qinghan who cultivated in the Tao of the blade. If he wanted to comprehend a strand of sword intent, he would have to exhaust an unimaginable amount of soul energy and time. The Tao of the sword was unparalleled. Such a Tao of the sword was flawless. A sword was just a sword, a very ordinary sword, but it was unavoidable. Boom! The small person was forced to retreat, and his soul was almost scattered. Yi Qinghan's face was pale as blood flowed from his eyes, mouth, nostrils, and ears. Even with his eyes closed, the sword light could still cut through time and space and appear in front of Yi Qinghan. A white light flashed past, and Yi Qinghan's brows trembled. The blood mark between his brows split open, and blood streaks flowed out. 1 sword. 2 sword. The 3 sword scars actually created 3 sword art. Each sword art had many sword moves. 1 move could seize the soul, and each could kill a low-level god priest. Yi Qinghan's soul was so strong and his soul energy was so abundant, but he actually showed signs of not being able to withstand it. After withstanding 81 sword strikes, he finally couldn't take it anymore. Armor transformation. Merge. Yi Qinghan grunted as the star-twisting vine and the divine bird merged together. The god-slaying eagle and cloud beast also merged with Yi Qinghan. Their souls were as one. Whoosh! The small person changed crazy weight to a sharp sword and started to learn the sword arts on the sword scars. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! The small person in Yi Qinghan's mind shone brightly as he stared at the sword arts. With a flick of his wrist, he could release the exact same sword arts, but the power was much weaker. He needed to figure out the circulation path of the divine power bit by bit and fix it bit by bit. In the valley outside God Extinction Mountain, Emperor Yi was playing the carefree sigh. His soul took the initiative to attack Lu Zhantian and Mu Xiaoqi's Sea of Consciousness, suppressing the curse technique. The melody suppressed the fear that the curse technique brought to them, preventing the curse technique from consuming their souls and torturing them to death. Emperor Yezguqin Dao had reached a new level with the support of the Godhead. He had actually expelled the sorcerer tribe's curse technique from their consciousness. Lu Zhantian slowly woke up, and he felt like he had been fighting for hundreds of days. He was exhausted and his soul was weak. An hour later, Mu Xiaoqi also slowly woke up. Her face was pale as if she had been frightened. I didn't die. I entered God Extinction Mountain, and I didn't die. Mu Xiaoqi escaped death, and her words were jumbled with excitement. It's good that you're fine. I'll go in and find Master. Don't move around if there's nothing. Emperor Yi hurriedly said, Isn't it too dangerous for you to go in alone? Let's wait for Brother Yi to come out. I'm not worried about his battle strength. Lu Zhantian swallowed a dozen divine pills and recovered his soul. No. Master has been in there for 3 days, and there's no news at all. Emperor Yi was anxious. He wanted to go in as soon as possible, but just as he was about to go in, he suddenly looked up and saw a figure rushing in. Lu Zhantian, A hurried voice resounded through the valley, and the figure landed outside. It was the chief steward of the divine cleansing estate. Lu Zhantian saw the chief steward's pale face, and he seemed to be very anxious. He immediately went up and asked, "Chief steward, why are you here?" "Lu Zhantian, the estate lord ordered you to report to the Steel Dragon army immediately." Lu Zhantian and the others frowned, not understanding why the estate lord gave such an order. "What happened? Isn't the governor at the front line? Why is he so urgent that I report to him immediately?" Lu Zhantian frowned and asked. "Something big happened at the front line. I don't know what agreement the Army Destroyer Estate and Gongyang Estate reached, but they attacked the Divine Cleansing Estate at the same time. The Divine Nation didn't react at all. The governor led millions of troops at the front line to resist, and he died. Now there's no master at the front line to lead the army, and they're even more lacking in vanguard generals. Out of desperation, the estate lord came out personally, and the left and right inspectors went to the battlefield. However, the enemy's estate lord and other masters all went to the front line." The chief steward hurriedly explained. "The key to leading the army in a war is morale. It's impossible to rely solely on the estate lord to charge and break through the enemy lines. The estate lord asked me to look for you." Emperor Yi frowned. The estate lord's matter had nothing to do with her, so she obviously wouldn't go back with him. "Emperor Yi, I'm afraid you have to go back as well. Now more than half of the Divine Cleansing Estate has fallen, and the insane sect is deep in the war zone. I'm afraid it won't be long before it's overrun," the chief steward reminded her. Crack! Emperor Yi hugged the emperor's zither tightly and summoned the deicide hawk. He left the chief steward behind and flew into the sky, leaving a trail of dust behind. Screech! The deicide hawk galloped across the universe toward the insane sect. Swish, swish, swish. The chief steward took Lu Zhantian and Mu Xiaoqi and rushed over as well. In the Divine Cleansing Estate, except for the current Yunhai County, almost all the major cities and counties were caught in the war. The Sanqing Divine Kingdom, the Holy Dragon Divine Kingdom, and the Broken Martial Divine Kingdom did not have a single senior official to speak up, allowing the two major prefectures to attack the Divine Cleansing Estate. Half of the 3,000 small cities in the Divine Cleansing Estate had fallen, and the rest were caught in the war. The army was the army, and the situation was almost one-sided. The immortal guards of the major cities were defeated without a fight, and some small sects had announced their departure from the Divine Cleansing Estate and joined the Broken Army and Gongyang prefectures. Those who disobeyed would be killed without mercy. The insane sect was also under attack. Fortunately, Medusa was there to hold on until now. The Western Gorge Mountain was easy to defend and difficult to attack, so it hadn't been breached. However, there were at least 100,000 soldiers around, constantly attacking the insane sect's formation. Chapter 570. The flames of war raged outside the Guangzong, but the inner and outer sects were not in chaos. The inner sects comforted the outer sects through the underground passage and helped to defend against the enemy. There were no less than 30 lower god priests in the Guangzong, and they were all top-notch in the Endless Plains. They were invincible in the same level. With the godhood, it was not difficult to enter the god-priest realm. Di Shang and Di Longtian both became gods at the same time. Di Longtian's body started to show the strength of a true knowing. The dragon in his body was a true divine dragon, and its bloodline was not inferior to the third-generation Chaos Dragon. Once the dragon's might appeared, all beasts in the world would submit. Xian Yan woke up, and now he was out of control. He broke through continuously and condensed the godhood with his own strength. His combat power reached the top of the lower god priest. The 13 swords of the divine gate killed gods with every strike. He practiced with Xia Qiyu and Gu Qingyu, and they improved together. Gu Qingyu, with the experience of Xian Yan, also condensed the godhood. Once he succeeded, he became one with the sword, and his soul and godhood were completely compatible. Outside, the flames of war were everywhere. The Guangzhong could only passively defend, let alone Xianyue County. Xianyue County was destroyed, Divine Lord Xian died in battle, and the army led by Xian Lang and Xian Nu was scattered. They had nowhere to run and were directly captured and detained outside the Guangzhong. Medusa looked at the outside world emotionlessly. She was not interested in the war, so she just peacefully guarded the Guangzhong's sect-protecting formation. She had no intention of opening the door to rescue them. The major forces of Xianyue County had already rebelled. They knew the relationship between the county god's office and the Guangzhong, and they used the lives of Xian Lang and Xian Nu to threaten the Guangzhong. Although the mixed army of Gongyang Prefecture was not in the right, an army of 100,000 people had nearly 10,000 gods in it. The commander-in-chief was a middle god priest. At this moment, he was constantly sending people to harass the Guangzhong, shouting and humiliating the Guangzhong. Whoever can scold the Guangzhong until they open the door to fight will be rewarded with a lower god godhood. 1,000 lower god crystals. Promotion to Chiliarch. The commander-in-chief Gongyang Wanluan shouted at the army and the traitors. Whoosh! The army was in an uproar. Xianyue County's former sects wanted to make a contribution, so they all rushed forward. Why are the people brought by Yi Qinghan so? It was simply laughable to the extreme. A large army was pressing down on them, yet they actually only dared to hole up and defend. There wasn't even a single person who dared to fight. What a joke! The head of the Shangguan family in Xianyue County said disdainfully. Actually, Yi Qinghan is also a coward. What can his sect do? You only know how to be a coward. That's why you built the sect's defensive formation into a turtle shell. Ha ha ha! At that time, the 5 major forces in Xianyue County had all rebelled. Knowing the Guangzhong's weakness, they all used Yi Qinghan as an excuse. Yi Qinghan was the soul of the insane school. How could he allow others to humiliate and curse him? At least some of the patriarchs and patriarchs knew their limit. However, the younger generation's insults poured down like rain, angering all the heroes. Gu was enraged. He wanted to rush out and kill in all directions but was held back by Yimingshi. Everyone, don't be impulsive. Big Brother doesn't care if others scold him. He only cares about your lives. Rushing out now is no different from throwing your lives away. How many people do we have in our sect? How can 30 god priests fight against 10,000 god priests? Yimingshi said in a deep voice. Gu Qingyu and the others took a deep breath. They were somewhat impatient. Si Wuxie and Di Longtian were even more so. They had watched Yi Qinghan grow up and treated Yi Qinghan like a father or a brother. They simply couldn't tolerate others insulting Yi Qinghan like this. The two glared at each other and were about to rush out. Calm down, all of you. The general is a mid-level god priest and a high-ranking member of the Gyeong Prefecture. He uses the Sky Splitter Spear art, which is a high-level divine art. If I want to kill him, I need to use all my strength. If I don't do it, you won't be able to fight against a mid-level god priest. Now we can only wait for Qinghan and Emperor Yi to come back. Medusa reminded coldly. I can't take it anymore. They've been cursing us for the past few days, but we don't dare to fight. How are we going to fight in the future? Di Longtian clenched his iron fist, and the dragon mark was about to erupt. Xian Yan was a madman. He didn't care how many enemies there were. Killing was his hobby. Therefore, he pulled out his sword and left. Wait a little longer. We'll launch a sneak attack tonight. This is the only chance we have to turn the tables. At this moment, Lu Aotian walked out with Luojia. They were still the best at leading troop. Their schemes and plots had reached perfection. Let Yen Yunbei and Yi Linchen assassinate the general. As long as we kill the general and throw his body out, the army of 100,000 will definitely fall into chaos. At that time, let the little golden crow spit out divine flames and disturb the battlefield. Lady Yixian will be responsible for leading us to attack the main camp and disrupt their deployment. We don't need to kill hundreds of thousands of people, but we need to defeat them. After fighting for an hour, we will immediately return to the sect to defend. Therefore, the sect gate's defense is the most important, Lu Aotian explained. This plan is feasible. At least we can reduce the casualties to a minimum. Otherwise, if you all die in battle, how am I going to explain it to Qin Han when he comes back? Medusa said coldly. Xia Qiue came to the sect gate and saw a sea of people outside the barrier. There were people constantly attacking, and the barrier was about to collapse. The ravines in front were shocking, as if they were going to sink the western gorge mountain. Looking at the messy army, Xia Qiue sneered and pointed to the southeast corner of the camp. She said to Xia Ziluo, "That's where the rebel army is stationed. Whether it's defense or attack, it's the weakest. When the battle starts tonight, you and Shenong will release poison from there and force the poisonous gas to the depth. Let the rebel army rush into the army of Gongyang Prefecture." After the plan was discussed, everyone finally calmed down and waited for the night to fall. Yan Yunbei and Yi Linchen hid in the outer sect, preparing to sneak out of the sect and sneak into the camp to kill the general. The people outside cursed until their mouths were dry, but no one came out of the Kuang sect. It was as quiet as a pool of stagnant water. The sky gradually darkened. After a day of cursing, everyone was tired. They all set up camp and their discipline was very lax. They never thought that the Kuang sect would take the initiative to attack. In the outer sect, a corner of the protective barrier was opened. Yan Yunbei and Yi Linchen turned into a wisp of cloud and killed 2 soldiers under the cover of the night. They changed into their clothes and swaggered directly to the main camp. The two looked at each other and made a hand gesture. They split into 2 groups and approached the main camp from the left and right side. The patrolling soldiers on the road turned a blind eye to them and let them enter Gongyang Luanluan's tent. Gongyang Luanluan was having fun with the vice-generals and captains. Many female cultivators were caught and forcibly raped. The priests couldn't escape their misfortune either. Once the war started, tragedies were bound to happen. If they wanted to avoid such a fate, they had to be strong. The main camp was like a palace. Gongyang Luanluan held a wine cup in his hand and hugged 2 naked female priests. There were several scars on the backs of the female priests. Judging from the shape, they should have been caused by long whip. At this moment, their divinity was suppressed and they didn't dare to resist. They could only tremble and force a smile. Ha ha, after we take down Guangzhou, we can march straight to the center of divine cleansing prefecture. That's our heaven. Gongyang Luanluan laughed loudly. Congratulations, Commander. After we take down Guangzhou, we can rest assured and recruit soldiers. I heard that Guangzhou is very rich. They have several 100,000 mid-grade divine crystals in their hands. It's enough to pay our soldiers for a year. The vice-general said flatteringly. Ha ha ha, there will be a day when I will turn my army into a 1,000,000-strong army that will be invincible. At that time, all of you will be my meritorious subjects. It was as if Gongyang Luanluan could see the awe-inspiring image of himself as the prefecture lord of a region. He immediately laughed and said, Commander-in-Chief, I've heard that there are many beautiful women in the crazy sect. Their inner sect disciples all have strong cultivation. If we can capture them alive, tame them, and turn them into our cannon fodder, our army might become the main force of Gongyang Prefecture. A captain said excitedly. Speaking of the main force, Gongyang Luanluan's eyes turned cold. The corner of his mouth revealed a cold smile. He had more than 10 brothers, but he was the only one who wasn't favored. He was in charge of a mixed army. This kind of army could deal with the divine guards of Xianyue Prefecture. One day, I will make my father look at me in a different light. I will not be worse than them. Gongyang Wanluan coldly snorted. At this moment, 2 soldiers came into the camp with extremely sumptuous delicacies and wine in their hands. They placed all of them in front of Gongyang Wanluan. The 2 soldiers lowered their heads and didn't dare to look around for fear of angering Gongyang Wanluan. At this moment, Gongyang Wanluan was very excited and arrogant. He hugged the beautiful woman in his arms and ruthlessly clawed her chest. The perverted Gongyang Wanluan loved to torture female cultivators. Seeing their painful expressions made him even more excited. He didn't care about the 2 soldiers at all. Yan Yunbei and Yi Linchen lowered their heads and knelt in front of Gongyang Wanluan. The dagger in their sleeves could turn into a poisonous snake and pierce into each other's chest and head at any time. Once the attack was launched, Gongyang Wanluan would not have the chance to counterattack. Gongyang Wanluan pressed his hands on the 2 female cultivators' breasts. How could he have the time to eat the delicacies? He said to the 2 extremely beautiful female cultivators, "Can't you see that this commander is busy? Why aren't you serving this commander?" Gongyang Wanluan exerted more force. The 2 female cultivators immediately screamed and quickly leaned forward to grab the food and wine. Yan Yunbei didn't dare to show any emotion. He quietly waited for Gongyang Wanluan to personally grab the food. He was going to explosively attack. The golden dragon dagger in his sleeves would directly pierce into Gongyang Wanluan's sea of consciousness and pick out his godhead. Yi Linchen only needed to pierce his heart and this mission would be completed. Yi Linchen was also suppressing his temper. Time slowly passed, but Gongyang Wanluan's hands seemed to be unable to leave the women. He couldn't help but curse in his heart, "Bastard, I'll let you be free for a while more. You won't have the chance in the future." The 2 of them knelt for a whole hour. They were both angry, especially Yan Yunbei. His fingertips moved slightly. The dragon-shaped dagger turned into a long snake. He held it tightly in his hand and was ready to attack at any moment. However, hard work paid off. The kneeling of the 2 powerful martial artists finally paid off. Gongyang Wanluan finally stood up and bent down to personally take the divine fruit on top of Yan Yunbei's head. Yan Yunbei's chest was exposed in front of the 2 martial artists. At this moment, Yan Yunbei suddenly exploded. The dagger turned into a flood dragon and directly pierced from the throat to the head. It was as fast as lightning, making it impossible to dodge. Puchi! Yi Linchen's sword pierced through Gongyang Wanluan's heart. With a roll, he flashed behind Gongyang Wanluan. At this moment, Yan Yunbei flicked the dagger in his hand. His godhead flew out and was caught by Yi Linchen. It was too fast. It was so fast that no one could react. In the entire camp, no one thought that the 2 soldiers would suddenly explode and attack the commander. Chapter 571. Boom. The energy in the main tent was shattered, and the tent was blown away. Yan Yunbei and Yi Linchen hid behind Gongyang Wanluan at the same time. Yan Yunbei shot a signal arrow straight into the sky. Inside the insane sect, the little golden crow rushed out from the enchantment and flew into the starry sky. It spat out a mouthful of fire. Anything that came in contact with the fire would be set ablaze. Thousands of soldiers were set ablaze, and even the priests could not escape from the fire. Thousands of people screamed at the same time. Some of the tents were set ablaze, and the screams broke the silence. Kill! In the main tent, a group of lieutenants unsheathed their swords and charged towards Yan Yunbei and Yi Linchen. The 2 of them chopped off Gongyang Wanluan's head and kicked the body away, sending it crashing into the crowd. The 2 of them flew into the sky with the head and shouted, "Your marshal is dead! Surrender now! Kill!" Dozens of powerful figures rushed out from the Kuang sect. Gu Qingyu, Xian Yan, Xia Qiue, Qitian Monkey King, and the others from the older generation were the most powerful. They almost swept through everything. Medusa looked as if she had no bones, but her 5 fingers directly pierced through the head of the priest and crushed his divinity. De Long Tian turned into a divine dragon, and his aura shook the sky. The long dragon swung its tail and swept across 1,000 meters. Boom! Although Si Wuxie did not have the golden bloodline, he had the 5 elements physique. Yi Qinghan's blood flowed in his body, and his battle intent was high. Gold, wood, water, fire, earth. 5 elements as one. The 2 young disciples swooped into the camp and swept away the enemies. Whoosh! The ground was shaken, and yellow sand filled the air. The ordinary venerable sovereigns were all killed before they could even resist. Swoosh! 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 Lin Weishan's sword flashed as he took away a corpse. The little boy from back then had already become a man. He was resolute, domineering, and incomparably cruel. His sword pierced through the heart. 1 man, 1 sword. He was almost the same as Gu Qingyu. Chaos Moon, Mu Yu Tianchen, and Luo Jie, with Yi Qinghan's godhood supporting them, they were able to become gods in half a year. Just when they were worried that they wouldn't have a chance to practice, these people came knocking on their door. Nearly 40 experts, the kings of individual soldiers, slaughtered their way into the army of 100,000. There were also quite a few rebel soldiers, and they were simply unstoppable. Medusa rushed straight to the center of the camp. Yan Yunbei and Yi Linchen were surrounded by thousands of priests. Thousands of priests attacked together, causing the sky to collapse. The 2 of them coughed out blood and flew backward, crashing into the ground. Split up. Whoosh! Whoosh! Swish! The 2 of them continuously shuttled through the crowd, dodging and shifting, changing their positions. Their speed was as fast as lightning, hoping to confuse so many divine shrine experts. Boom! Boom! Whoosh! Whoosh! The 1,000 or so priests did not seem to care about the lives of the soldiers underground. Their divine power poured out and smashed toward the 2 of them. Wherever they passed, the area within a radius of several hundred meters became an abyss. The army was in complete chaos. The deputy marshals did not dare to let the 2 of them escape. In any case, the marshal was the son of the manor head. If he was assassinated just like that, if they could not catch the culprit, they would all be buried with him. Therefore, the spirit of die for me was carried forward in their army. Catch the 2 of them. They are the ones who killed the marshal. If you catch or kill any one of them, you will be rewarded with 10,000 mid-grade divine crystals and be promoted to a major. The deputy marshal roared in anger. He could not wait to kill Yan Yunbei and Yi Linchen. The 1,000 or so priests in the sky forcefully attacked the 2 of them. How could they still care about the army? The army became more and more chaotic. The direction Yan Yunbei and Yi Linchen escaped to was suddenly empty. The army was crowded and scattered. They did not want to be killed by their own people before they could stop Yan Yunbei. Boom! The energy smashed a big hole in the ground. Yan Yunbei and Yi Linchen were sent flying at the same time. Their bodies were unstable, and they immediately fell into a dangerous situation. Whoosh! The deputy marshal led a large group of captains to suppress the army and rush toward Yan Yunbei. In order to give the prefecture master an explanation, these deputy marshals and captains actually put the army of 100,000 under the butcher's knife. Gu Qingyu and the others were like a sharp knife that tore through the defense and killed with all their might. At the southeast corner, the rebel army was suddenly in chaos. People kept falling down and died silently as if they were possessed. Shino and Qinyan released the poisonous gas, and Xia Ziluo fanned the flames. The poisonous gas continued to rush into the depth. Most importantly, the 2 of them took the initiative to remind the rebel army, causing them to go even crazier. They were in a mess, and the army's attack formation was scattered. "We will release the poison," Shino Qinyan shouted. She and Xia Ziluo each held an antidote in their mouths and raised their swords to kill. The Black Moon County's territory was in chaos. The insane sect was crazily killing, and the king's soldiers were invincible. In the end, even the outer sect disciples rushed out and cooperated with them to kill the ordinary soldiers. Gu Qingyu and the others not only wanted to kill, they also wanted to snatch the godheads. They wanted to snatch the rations, yin-yang rings, and divine crystals. All kinds of resources. This was an unequal fight. Why would the king of single soldiers care about these ordinary soldiers and ordinary priests? Anyone from the insane sect could be the vanguard on the battlefield. Lu Aotian and Roger obviously did not expect the insane sect to attack so smoothly. They did not even need to return to their sect to rest. Let's kill them together. Kill them until they run. Lu Aotian pulled out his sword and rushed into the depth. One sword of reincarnation took countless lives. Roger followed closely behind. He was loyal and devoted, afraid that something would happen to Lu Aotian. In the center area, Yen Yunbei was frantically running away. He could not withstand the combined attacks of so many priests. At this moment, he was battered and exhausted. His back was full of scars and blood. He was not suitable for fighting head-on. This was Yi Qinghan's strength. Yen Yunbei was only an assassin. He could even assassinate a medium god. 500 to 600 people joined forces to suppress Yi Linchen. Even more people were pressuring Yen Yunbei. I don't have long to live. Yen Yunbei was helpless. Although he succeeded in infiltrating the enemy's camp to assassinate the commander, to do it in front of so many people, it was obvious that he did not want to retreat. Just when Yen Yunbei thought that he was going to die, a light flashed and an afterimage took Yen Yunbei away. In an instant, the place where Yen Yunbei was standing became an abyss. Divine power destroyed everything. Medusa was as fast as lightning. She grabbed Yen Yunbei in the air, and then rushed toward Yi Linchen, leaving the commander far behind. Yi Linchen was also in danger. However, his individual combat power was not bad. He was comparable to the fifth great emperor in the past. How could he be inferior? Yi Linchen dodged and moved, trying his best to avoid the heavy attacks. He managed to hold on for a while. However, with so many priests, they could easily defeat a medium god, let alone him. Boom! Yi Linchen was hit by dozens of attacks. His body was like a kite with a broken string. A large number of priests on the ground threw out their divine weapons, trying to kill him in advance. Whoosh! There was another flash of light. Medusa's white silk wrapped around Yi Linchen's waist and pulled him away with a vicious tug. By the time Medusa rescued Yen Yunbei and Yi Linchen, the vice-marshal and the captains finally realized what had happened. 100,000-strong army had been scattered by a few dozen people from the insane sect. There was no way to stop them now that a large number of deserters had appeared. All Kiliarchs gather. 300 men in a team. The captains will lead. Find your targets and kill everyone from the Kuang zone. The vice-commander roared, shaking the mountains and rivers. The ordinary soldiers could not gather. However, the Kiliarchs were still Kiliarchs. They quickly gathered together. 300 men killed one person. Moreover, they were all priests. The Kuang zone would definitely be at a disadvantage. Lu Aotian and Xia Qiue shouted at the same time, "Retreat! Retreat to the Kuang zone immediately! Since you have come out, don't think about going back. Today, I will kill all of you." The vice-commander's eyes were red. Tonight was too miserable. 100,000-strong army was beaten so badly by a few people from the Kuang zone. Even the commander was killed. When they returned, they did not know how the chief would punish them. The death penalty might be a light punishment. How could they not hate the Kuang zone? Chapter 572. The 10,000 god worshippers rushed toward Medusa and the others, and the army blocked their way back to the insane sect. "Fight back! Don't resist!" Lu Aotian shouted. "Kill!" The deputy commander roared and led the army to attack the insane sect. No matter how weak the army was, it was still an army. The 10,000 god worshippers besieged a few dozen people. No matter how strong the soldiers were, they were still soldiers. Kill anyone from the insane sect, and you'll be rewarded with 10,000 divine crystals and a promotion of 3 ranks. Kill anyone from the outer sect, and you'll be rewarded with 100,000 divine crystals and a promotion of 1 rank. Kill. With such a great reward, the army rushed toward the insane sect in a frenzy, especially the 1,000 outer sect disciples. Their faces were pale, but they gritted their teeth and fought, unwilling to surrender and beg for mercy. Lin Wutian fought at the front. Wherever his sword passed, no one was able to withstand it. He was buying time for the outer sect disciples. "All disciples, retreat to the outer sect immediately. No delay!" Lin Wutian shouted. Whoosh! Whoosh! War was always so cruel. Even the hot-blooded people would be destroyed by endless killing. The enemies in front of him were endless. Lin Wutian poured out his godly power. He didn't care about the consequences. He had to protect the outer sect disciples and escape back to the outer sect. The little golden crow rushed toward the outer sect and spat out a mouthful of fire, sweeping toward the army. The divine fire burned half of the land and no one was left alive. The army screamed and screamed as they ran wildly. Those who were below the god worshippers were burned to ashes in an instant. Lin Wutian immediately took the opportunity to retreat to the outer sect with the 1,000 outer sect disciples. "All deacon elders of the god worshippers, follow me to support the inner sect uncles." After Lin Wutian activated the outer sect's protective formation, he drew his sword and left, rushing toward the outer sect. Outside, Medusa and the others could only work together to resist the attack of the 10,000 god worshippers. Medusa alone could not withstand it. Nearly 10,000 pairs of 40 god worshippers. Even if all 40 of them were kings of soldiers, they were not at the same level. Boom! 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 The defensive barrier of Medusa and the others was shattered by the countless attacks. It looked like it could not hold on any longer and was in imminent danger. Xia Ziluo and Xia Qihua rushed over and strengthened the barrier, but it still looked pale. Qin Yan, release the poison, open the way back. Lu Aotian's divine power poured into the protective barrier as he shouted with all his might. Block it. Stop them even if you have to die. The deputy commander's eyes were red as he roared at the army behind the Guangzhong. Then, he led nearly 10,000 Kiliarchs, centurions, and the strongest captains to launch an even more terrifying attack. Kill them all! Boom! Boom! Medusa and the others were forced to retreat. Now that both sides had separated, they were no longer in a mess. The insane sect was at a disadvantage because the difference in numbers was too great. However, it was impossible for them to fight back now. Once Medusa and the others gave up, the other side could instantly kill half of the elders of the insane sect. Quick, think of something. The heavenly monkey king grit his teeth and stood at the very front. His leg bones were already broken as blood flowed out incessantly. However, everyone else was in the same state as him right now, unable to fight back at all. The little golden crow wanted to spit out fire to defeat the deputy commander and the other high-level gods, but as soon as it spat out fire, it was drowned by endless divine power. Shenong Qinyan released the poison gas, but the other side's army only wanted to defend and did not want to attack. The Emperor Power Barrier could not kill her, but it could block the poison gas. The heroes were in despair. The outer sect disciples were unwilling to see the inner sect elders in desperate straits. However, if they left the sect, they would die without a doubt. They would not be of any help at all. If there's no other way, split up and run for your lives, Medusa said in a low voice. I'll hold them off for 3 breaths of time. Run as far as you can. The heroes were shocked. They were not willing to give up on Medusa's life. I'll count to 3. All of you run together. Medusa's face was distorted as scales grew on her jade arms. She wanted to unleash all her power and no longer hide her identity. 1, 2, buzz, 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 screech. There was a loud melody between heaven and earth as a solemn aura exploded in the sky. It was like a sudden clap of thunder that struck the consciousness of countless people. The explosion caused the faces of the army to turn pale. Some people even hugged their heads and screamed. The god-slaying eagle roared as it flapped its wings and flew over from the void. What's that? The deputy commander hurriedly looked up and saw a young lady standing on the head of the god-slaying eagle. She was dressed in white, and even her hair was white. The melody she played covered the entire Xianyue County. The melody was solemn. Not only did it shake the souls of the army and suppress their aura, it also stirred up their blood. The speed of their blood flow was out of control. Emperor Yi lowered the strings with one hand and plucked the strings with the other. The low and deep sound of the zither caused everyone to fall into panic. It was like the sound of death that came from hell. Buzz, buzz, boom. Emperor Yi got closer and closer to the army. The low and deep melody suddenly exploded. The high-pitched sound that tore at the eardrums swooped down on the army. Wherever the melody covered, all living beings were affected. The morale of the army was horribly suppressed, and they could not form an effective attack or defense. Even the major and chiliarch of the gods felt that their god power was out of control. Their godheads were surging as if they were about to explode. At this moment, they could not even defend, let alone attack. They retreated frantically and suppressed their own blood and god power. One man and one zither suppressed 100,000 soldiers and thousands of gods. As long as they were not mid-level gods, they were all affected by Emperor Ye's music. At this moment, it was not only the army that was affected. Even the inner sect of the Guangzong were affected. Emperor Yi did not care about the Guangzong at this moment. He only wanted to suppress everyone and end this war. Who are you? Please stop attacking our godheads. We are the army of the Gongyang Prefecture. The deputy commander was shocked because his god power was also out of control. His soul was suppressed, and his godhead was agitated. His god power wanted to rush out. He could only suppress the god power that was pouring out. 100,000 soldiers and tens of thousands of rebels were now pale. Some of them could not control themselves and directly self-destructed. The sky was dyed red with blood. After a night of fighting, the ground was already red. Now that dawn had just passed, red clouds rose from the horizon, making Xianyue County look like hell. Emperor Yi did not care about the deputy commander. He just played the zither quietly and suppressed the army. Medusa took the opportunity to grab a sharp sword and pierced through the deputy commander's head. She then threw the head to the celestial Qilin. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the sword gleam swept past, and the corpses of the priests fell one after another. Their divinities were all taken away by Medusa. At this moment, it had become a one-sided battle. The army could neither defend nor attack. Only Medusa was unaffected. With the might of a mid-level priestess, even if she did not reveal Medusa's special ability, it would be very easy for her to kill these low-level priestesses. Whoosh, Medusa's figure was like a demon that reaped lives. Wherever she passed, corpses piled up, and divinities left their bodies. Hundreds of priests died in an instant. Chapter 573. The sky was bright, and tens of thousands of corpses were piled up. More than half of the priests were dead, and the rest could only struggle at death's door. They could not even withstand Emperor Ye's music. Their divine power was restless, and they could explode at any time. Emperor Yi was immersed in his own world of Guqin Dao. The god-slaying eagle hovered high in the sky, flapping its huge wings. Anyone who got close to it would be sent flying. Gu Qingyu and the other inner sect members took the opportunity to retreat to the sect to recuperate. After a night of fighting, they were mentally exhausted. They could not withstand Emperor Ye's music, and Emperor Yi could not take care of them. Only Medusa was left to fight. Among the 100,000-strong army, only a few priests were able to resist, but they were all slaughtered by Medusa. Only 2 captains managed to escape the battlefield in a flash and rushed into the distance. Nearly 10,000 priests were wiped out. The remaining emperor-level ordinary soldiers either self-destructed, surrendered, or were killed by Medusa. Blood flowed like rivers. It was a tragic scene for 100,000 people. 30,000 of them were captured. Another 30,000 were detonated by Emperor Yi using his emperor power. The rest were all killed by Medusa. Emperor Yi looked down at the rebels, his eyes cold. We were forced to do this. Lord Emperor Yi, we are willing to submit to the Guangzhong. Please spare our lives. The 5 forces of Xianyue County immediately knelt before Emperor Yi, not daring to resist. The sect master and the elders of the major families turned pale. They thought about how they had insulted Yi Qinghan. Did they still have the chance to beg for mercy now? At this moment, all the outer sect disciples rushed out and glared at the disciples of the 5 forces. These people were the ones who scolded the most yesterday for glory. How could they let them go now? Senior sister, they insulted the sect master and humiliated the Guangzhong. This is unforgivable. Many young disciples had a deep sense of belonging to the Guangzhong. Looking at the people of the 5 forces, they were burning with anger. They were waiting for Emperor Ye's order to rush into the enemy group and kill them. Medusa stared at some people. She saw them clearly when they were scolding the Guangzhong yesterday. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Medusa raised her sword and swung it down, taking away the lives of some priests and venerable sovereigns. She killed all the people who had cursed her the most fiercely yesterday. The rest of them were so scared that they knelt on the ground, not daring to raise their heads. Emperor Yi looked down at the crowd and said coldly, "This empress will give you one last chance. If you dare to be my enemy again, I will kill you. Now scram." When everyone heard this, how could they dare to stay? They all ran away madly. However, there were a few dozen people who were still kneeling on the ground, unwilling to leave. It was a time of war, and only by staying in a strong sect would they have a chance to survive. The insane sect had Emperor Yi and Yi Qinghan. At the very least, they had a chance to protect themselves. These people were very smart. They hoped that they could stay and pledge their loyalty. Emperor Yi didn't want to test these people at first, but Lu Outyin rushed out and said excitedly, "You can stay after the test. We need our own army after all. There are too few people from the outer sect." Lu Outyin was the only one who was excited. War was cruel to many people. However, to him, it was the best time to expand his territory and plant the Lulan flag in the mythical plain. Xia Qiue also wanted to make a name for herself. She wanted to rebuild the Saint Dragon dynasty and show the glory of the de Xia family. More than 30,000 captives became Lu Outyan's capital. Although there were no priests and they were all venerable sovereigns and great sovereigns, with Lu Outyan around, they could build a powerful army. "Uncle Lu, I'll leave the outer sect disciples to you. The insane sect does need the protection of an army." Emperor Yi thought for a moment and decided to leave the outer sect matters to Lu Outyan. Lu Outyan and Xia Qiue would join hands to build a country and seal the territory. The insane sect would become the holy sect of the country. This was the best thing that could happen. Is it convenient? What about Brother Yi? Lu Outyan was overjoyed. With the support of the outer sect, there would be someone he could trust. This army could develop quickly. "It's okay. Master doesn't care about this," Emperor Yi said in a low voice. He was very confident in Yi Qinghan's safety. You can discuss the army with Uncle Xia. The military expenses will be taken from the insane sect. In the early stage, the inner sect will be your backing. The outer sect will be your vanguard. If someone from the inner sect is willing to go out and build a country with you, Master and I will definitely support it. Emperor Yi nodded. He hoped that the insane sect would become stronger as soon as possible so that he would not be tied down here. The insane sect announced the establishment of an army that night. It was named the Blade of Lulan and recruited soldiers. Si Wuxie and Xian Yan also joined the army. They were the two vanguard superintendents on the left and right respectively. Roger was the center vanguard. Most of the outer sect disciples joined the army as low-level officers to prevent the army from rebelling again. It was easy to recruit soldiers in troubled times. Not only did the adventurers from Xianyu County choose to join the army, the scattered immortal guards, and rogue cultivators from the surrounding cities all joined the Blade of Lulan. In 3 days, the Blade of Lulan had an army of 120,000 soldiers. The outer sect did not lack priests. Medusa distributed all the godhoods she obtained to the outer sect. Each person received 1 godhood and the rest were used as military expenses. 9,000 godhoods were used as rewards. She was not afraid that the army would make a contribution, but she was afraid that the contribution would be too little. Killing enemies would give them divinity crystals. Defeating an army would give them divinity crystals. If they made a great contribution, they would be promoted by 3 rank. Even if they joined later, as long as they were recognized by the higher-ups of the Blade of Lulan, they would be promoted to 10,000 men commander. In less than a week after the army was established, more than 300 outer sect disciples had become priests. On the 10th day, the Blade of Lulan had 1,500 priests. Among them, 1,000 were outer sect disciples, and the remaining 500 were recruited from the outside. The speed of the Blade of Lulan's construction was beyond Lu Aotian's imagination. Roger was excitedly training the army and treating the Blade of Lulan extremely cruelly. They were training day and night. 3 months of rations for Gongyang Wanluan's army of 100,000 was used up by them in 10 days. My lord, the army is already equipped with battle strength. We can use battle to nurture battle. Let's take down all the nearby cities. Roger excitedly rushed over and said to Lu Aotian, "All right, let's take down God's County, Martial Emperor County, and Suhai County first." Lu Aotian personally raised the flag and led the army towards God's County. At this moment, even the heavenly Qilin divine beast was recruited by him. Emperor Yi watched as the army was established. Xiaqua felt a little lonely and said, "Uncle Xia, I can provide you with divine beasts to help you build a dragon army. As for how far you can develop it, it will depend on your luck." Xiaqua's pupils shrunk and asked with a hoarse voice, "Do we have beast tamers? Where are the divine beasts coming from?" Emperor Yi hugged the divine zither and smiled, "I am the best beast tamer. Within 3 days, all the beasts above Emperor rank in the Mystic Moon Mountain Range will submit to me." Emperor Yi then turned and walked towards the depths of the Mystic Moon Mountain Range. The current divine cleansing prefecture was in imminent danger. All the major cities and counties were caught in the flames of war. The prefecture lord personally came out to fight the 2 divine prefectures. The Iron Dragon Army's supervisor died in battle and was now under Lu Zhantian's command. However, they were still in a disadvantageous position. After all, the main forces of the 2 prefectures were pressuring them. The 2 captains who escaped from Kuang's sect a month ago fled to the periphery of the battlefield and entered the war zone's barrack. Once they entered the main hall of Gongyang Prefecture, they knelt on the ground and didn't dare to raise their heads to look at the young man in the hall. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.